Colors Kannada currently offers a wide variety of fictions, genres that range from history and fantasy to family dramas and crime. Colors Kannada is home to several electrifying reality shows like Nannamma Superstar, Dancing Champion, Gichi Giligili, and of course, Big Boss. With initiatives like Serial Sunday and Anubandha Awards, Colors Kannada has endeared itself to millions of Kannadigas. GEC that brought people together to watch television invites you and your family to switch on your television sets and lose yourself in the magic. The magic we call entertainment.
Zee Bangla enjoys a deep, heartwarming relationship with Bengal for over 2 decades. 2 decades of building innovative and progressive content that has become a part of the way of living and popular lingo. It inspires the consumers every day, breathing hope into their hearts and encouraging them to orchestrate life in a new rhythm.
We are thankful to the viewers and partners for loving us and supporting us in these beautiful years of our journey. We humbly owe the success to the viewers who invest their time and preference with us.
La is the flag bearer of the extraordinary journeys of common people, their dreams, their struggle, their accomplishments. Shows like Dadagiri, Didi Number 1, Saridamapa, Mithai,
Lokki Kakiba Superstar, Uma and Oporajita Opu
have set their own benchmarks with the stories of consumers and their efforts in overcoming societal challenges. The brand is committed to serve its consumers, living up to their evolving content preferences.
We are thankful to the viewers and partners for loving us and supporting us in these beautiful years of our journey. We humbly owe the success to the viewers who invest their time and preference with us.
Good afternoon and welcome to Promax India Regional 2022. What an incredible journey it has been for all of us. We at Promax have been championing creative excellence with a single-minded goal of pushing boundaries, empowering and inspiring the community by celebrating their achievements. So here we are with the second edition of the regional show. Regional language content has been a huge driver over the past few years and its popularity has been immense. There was a time when Hindi entertainment channels used to be the only platform for top quality, glossy, big budget fiction and reality shows in India. Things are a bit different now. Regional channels are catching up with local versions, whether it is drama, mythology, mystery or horror in fiction, or quiz and dance shows in the reality space. We are very excited to bring to you fantastic speakers who are superstars in the regional world, from brilliant anecdotes to fascinating lessons in leadership. If you believe in the power of creativity, then this one is for you. So let's power up and enjoy the ride along the way. We'd now like to thank all our sponsors and partners for their support and participation year on year. Let us start with the first session of the day, Crafting a New Tomorrow, led by Shankar Bala, CEO of Fourth Dimension Media Solutions Private Limited. Hello, Shankar.
Rajika, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Thanks, Rajika, Andy, Swarnali and Team Promax. And it's always a great pleasure to be a part of your team. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And I'm truly honored here, to have such a wonderful team of panelists. I'll quickly, get on to, introducing them. And, I've known each one of them for more than, I guess, at least about 1.5 decades. I'm not saying, I'm getting old, but, having said that, let me introduce you to my first panelist, Guru Prasad Rao. Guru is a media veteran who comes with 3 decades of experience and who's rated as one of the top media buyers in the industry today. And, Guru has worked with some of the best media companies in the country, be it Kara Media, Motivator, Universal McCann, and so on and so forth. And it's an endless list Thank you, Guru. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. And I have my second panelist is Ramsai. Ramsai also is a media agency person. He's one guy who's been in sales, and we used to work together in Raj TV. And then Ramsai used to be a very, very effective salesperson, and then he moved on to head media and the topmost media agencies like Group M. He's worked with brands like Muthoot, and currently he's on GSK, Parle, and so on and so forth. Thanks, Ramsai. Oh, I have, I wouldn't say an odd man out. I have a gentleman here called Sriram, amongst all these. Sriram is basically a retail veteran. And Sriram is known for, he's basically, he comes with a killer instinct, and he's known for working for, I wouldn't say startup brands. He's created some of the best well-known brands in the country today. Be it Levistock Coffee, he's worked for CCD, and his last assignment was with Spexmaker. Sriram, congratulations for joining Indian Terrain. And so Sriram is basically the champion, I would say, or torchbearer of the retail industry. And then I have my last panelist, Raghav, and the best thing about this panel is I have Guru from Bombay, I have Ramsai from Delhi, I have Sriram from Madras, and then Raghav from Hyderabad. Raghav is an FMCG veteran, and he's got 3 decades plus of experience. He currently heads, Bambino Pasta as the head of marketing. And thank you so much. I'm sure all of you all have had lunch, and hope to have a great session. And okay, as always, my first question goes to my dear friend Guru. Guru, you've been in the space for more than 2.5 decades. You've been in media. Done buying. You've done the works. So, what is the noticeable change, Guru? What you've seen in the last 2 decades, I would say, in the minds of consumer and in the minds of advertiser. A lot of changes have happened. Just take us through that journey.
Yeah, Shankar, I mean, this question is, it's difficult to give one answer for this heterogeneous consumer like in India. But as a macro trend, media consumers is getting much more fragmented. And it's again different for different cases and geographies. But conventional media still rules despite digital boom. Again, different in different classes, but the consumer is doing a lot of research for new products before they narrow down on buying any particular product. And it's completely a buyer market, and hence product rating, search trends, social chatter, a lot of these things which today matters a lot. And it's also the communication, it's a two-way street with the buyer's feedback. Apart from the social media, I mean, what I'm saying is the demand for influencer is so high now, and in fact they are no less than celebrities these days, and advertisers are very much aware of this. And the media mix is a very dynamic these days. Gone are those days, there's a fixed media plan and there are no changes and stuff. Today everything is become ROI is very, very important, and all the media plans are very, very fluid. And this is basically primarily the new research methodologies, the matrix has really helped in better measurements of ROI. So even though digital plans are a must, especially influencers and social activity, the large issue is the entry cost for conventional media, which makes it spending on digital easier for many brands to do the launch at a low cost, especially in 2022.
So, Guru, now just taking, I know, I'm jumping onto it. So one thing, I've always been a seller. So I should, give my voice for sellers. One noticeable change, what I've seen in the last 2 decades or whatever, I have 2 big media agency experts here, you and Ramsai. You guys, the rates of broadcasters and repeat radio, print or whatever, Are you trying to say that you guys, the scope of negotiation for you, you've started negotiating more. Do you agree or disagree?
Shankar, I cannot really comment on the large advertisers, but I would definitely say that there are a lot more new categories and new brands are launching in almost every day. And they're looking at more value today than just about negotiation. It's because it's so much fragmented across all media. Today, clients are looking at how can we do a cost-effective, clutter-breaking ideas. So while rates are there, but definitely the value proposition from the media partners is what we definitely value.
Okay.
I'm sorry to jump in, Guru, but I think we are picking up some distortion from your other earpod, so we can't hear you very well.
Yeah,
Okay.
Guru, I think there is some
just-
wind. There is some wind.
Okay.
I guess something. No problem. Okay, now I think I'll go to my next question to Raghav. Raghav, you are a hi. Thank you, Raghav. Thank you for joining. Raghav, you are an FMCG brand. You're based out of Hyderabad, and okay, now you represent basically a category called pasta. Okay, while you have numbers to bombard us with consumption of pasta and so on and so forth, you have a category like this, and you're based out of Hyderabad, and you will basically be competing with the biggies. I don't want to name them. Biggies who are based out of different parts of the country. So, what are the challenges you would notice in terms of media mix? Somebody who's sitting in Hyderabad, would you command? I would not use the word respect. Would you command the same amount of entitlements like someone else who's based out of Bombay, Delhi, or Bangalore? Just take us through that. And
yeah, thanks for having me. First of all, see, vermicelli is also a pasta product. Actually, only in India we see vermicelli as different from pasta. So the production process is same for vermicelli as with pasta, except the shape and the length of it. Now, since vermicelli is very familiar to Indian market, and it is also one of those products that is used primarily for celebration and festivals and other things. And my TG is always everyone, especially B, C, D. So my job is a little more easier because I'm straight up using the big media like print and TV. And since it is mass market, I choose my market. Like for Telugu, I choose GEC channels, for Tamil separately, for Kannada separately. My media mix is slightly more straightforward as with the old-fashioned FMCG advertising. Only thing is, since my product is also used as part of Naivedyam or the offering to God, like for example, kheer or payasam or a paramanam. So I also get to use the devotional channels, which are actually very affordable. So I use a mix of devotional and GEC to reach up to my TG, and so far it has been working well for us. Now,
no, Raghav, I'm sorry to interrupt you. When you were talking, there's another thought which struck to my mind. Probably I'll you can address it towards your end. Have you ever, by a brand being based out of Hyderabad, you are a large brand today, have you ever lost out on any big opportunities of your category which has gone to your competition because by virtue of you being based out of Hyderabad or budgets or whatever it is? Like I'll give you an example. If there are clients like A, B, and C who are based out of Bombay, Delhi, and Bangalore, okay, and then you are based out of Hyderabad. Now there's a big property which is coming, okay, and you're willing to pay the premium, okay, but yet there are certain broadcasters who would want to align with A, B, and C for whatever reasons. Could you share some instances of that where you felt that am I by being a regional brand, I lost this opportunity? Have you ever has this thought ever come to your mind?
No, see, in the sense that we are a regional brand and fairly known across the southernmost region. So we are like a Hindustan Lever, say for example in East Godavari of Andhra Pradesh or Rayalaseema. We are fairly as big as anybody else in our space actually. As far as media mix, I've never been discriminated or and I've been offered costlier media. I always got my media very affordable rates because I'm a strong regional player, and regional media depend on people like us.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or you want to further
Yeah, no,
probe?
perfect,
I'm ready.
perfect, Raghav. It answers my question. Shriram, you're marketing head, retail head, sales head. You're down of all heads. Okay, now as a retail veteran, whatever posts I've been reading about you or whatever, do you still subscribe to the idea of walk-ins at the store or e-com? What fascinates you? Do you see, like for example, today you represent a brand called Indian Terrain, correct? Well, we are all living in a world where e-com is big and we have numbers to support and substantiate. What excites you? And so the space where you are in currently, uh, how much of regional OTT you think will basically excite your audience?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Shankar. I think you have asked two questions, so I'm going to take one after the other. Yes, this is my Silver Jubilee year in retail, 25 years now. So when I joined the retail industry, I was said that the organized retail industry will kill the kirana businesses, and kiranas will go out of business, and all the shopkeepers will be left at the lurch. At least that was the loud noise mongering that happened. About a decade back, with the onset of e-commerce, a small startup company in Bangalore used to sell books, and then the American company came into India and then said, "Okay, now organized retail is dead. E-commerce is going to take over our lives, so all the shops will be shut down, and people will only click and buy." To our luck and to our favor, and I think there are at least 10 million people directly involved in India in the Indian retail ecosystem. The estimated size of the retail business today in India is about 650 billion US dollars. 650 billion US dollars. Amazon is about 3 billion. Flipkart is about 4, 5, 6 billion, whatever number GMVs that they talk about. 650 billion, and then we are in single digit. That's the e-commerce business that we're talking about. I think, and I continue to believe that every decade or every 7-8 years, there will be a huge disruption. But this disruption is not like a tsunami which will wipe away a completely grown business. So be it apparel retail, be it grocery retail, be it the multiplex business, which I still call retail and OTT equivalent as the e-commerce part of it, because you're watching the OTT on a device. I think both will continue to exist, and one will only propel the other to improve better. Look at the recent numbers. 3 films together have garnered 2,000 crores in revenues in India, which is Triple R, KGF, and of course, 1 or 2 other language films across the 4 or 5 top languages. 2,000 crores, and that's not even a subscription money that Netflix or Amazon would have recovered in India, right? And we're talking about a 30 to 45-day window. So e-commerce or the digital way of conducting business will be a very important aspect for Indian Terrain, for grocery businesses, for any business for that matter. But will this supersede completely and wipe out the offline business? I think that's a very utopian way to think. It works very well for research companies who write some interesting articles in newspapers and media. But in reality, we are very, 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 very far away from that. Answering to your second question, Shankar, OTTs versus the mainstream media. I believe that OTTs had a big run in the last 24 months because we, as consumers, as the audience, had a lot of time with us. Most of us were on a work from home mode or on a hybrid mode. And I think many of us got habituated to the habit of watching movies. I would personally say until 2019, I would watch 1 or 2 movies in a month. But during the last 24 months, I think I would have watched about 100 movies, which is average of 4 or maybe more sometimes. Is that habit continuing with me? Somewhat, yes. But will it be the same as what it was 12 months back or 8 months back? I don't think so. So I think as brands, we will continue to focus our efforts on the mainstream media, which is television, print, radio, and outdoor. BTL will continue to be a very important part as far as retailers are concerned. Again, apparel, grocery, etc. OTT digital will be an important, non-ignorable format for us to communicate. Now, how much of importance will the industry give? I think that's a very broad answer because it'll obviously be different. Like for example, as Raghav said, in case of Bambino, maybe they have to do a lot more influencer engagement to promote the various ways by which a vermicelli or a pasta can be used. Now, how much of people can wear shirts and t-shirts and hang around in videos and influencer marketing? I think limited extent, right? But probably Bambino can take maybe 100 cookery shows in YouTube or in any other format. An apparel brand cannot really do that, right? So I think usage of influencers or the digital platforms for marketing, advertising, communication will obviously depend per category. Specific to the apparel category, I think it will start and begin to a large extent with influencer marketing, which is what the so-called people with a few thousands or few million followers are. And secondly, I think there is a lot of collaboration which is possible with the OTTs, web series, and specially made films. But that will also have a spillover effect on the television content as well. It could be in talk shows, it could be in interviews, it could be in movies, etc. So I think specific to our category, it would obviously be largely mainstream, Shankar. OTT will grow, no doubt about it.
Sriram, I'm going to come back to you on that. But, Ramsai, you handle close to about more than 1,200 to 1,500 crores of media, correct? How much of importance do you, I understand, we all go through P1, P2, P3 and all that. So what has changed in regional retail? And just in about 3 minutes, I know it's a tough ask in about 3 minutes. If you can just take us through the certain forms of media, what has changed, I'm sure it will enlighten the audience here.
Yeah, thanks, Shankar. Good afternoon, everyone. See, it's all about, it's not about volume that actually, comes into a play. So when you actually look into the retail space today, all these national brands have gone into the retail way of tasting the success. That's the first, change that we have started, noticing it in the recent phenomenon. And also why? It's because the regional retail is now new national. That's what the belief. And it is also because if we see that close to 10% of our country's GDP comes out of the retail sector for us. Also, the 8% of the employment, the country's employment, again being funded by this, serviced by the or fulfilled by the retail sector. That actually makes very, very important for us to look retail in a different way. Just to quote some of the examples that how the retail sectors have actually emerged here is just one small example that India's largest auto showroom, which is located at Kerala, where I could even take the name of the showroom, which is Nippon Toyota, where it has been built on 10 stories building. I mean, we have never seen such kind of it's also the way of growing the retail, and the retail how it is actually giving the return back to the brands. Again, if you look at the state, again, I have to take an example of AP and Telangana, where Reliance went and actually, bought a 60-year-old legacy brand, which is Kalanikethan, where it is also, this is again to, preserve and penetrate further in terms of the retail market. This is just a, preface that how retail is so important for us, and the kind of the vital role which is playing in the space for us. And if I have to just answer you the mediums how it is playing an important, yes, of course, the digital. Just to again give you an example that digital plays a very important role. I'm starting off with online medium because of the fact that we all of us are post 2020 glued on to digital, and digital is becoming a new national medium for all of us, right? All the consumers. Byju's as a client, we've all know that brand. We have all known that it has actually started off with digital. Now they are going with a physical tuition centers and all at a local hypermarket level.
No, 1 minute, Ramsay, 1 minute. Baiju is a digital brand. Baiju has changed the way education is consumed or whatever. To a large extent of X amount of money of what Baiju spends, even today, about 60 to 70% of the money is still spent on television.
You take most
of the OTT players today, from Netflix to Amazon Prime to whoever is there, while we all are here to endorse digital and OTT and so on and so forth, their banking, which is my next question to Guru, their banking is still on OTT. You get my point? So sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's absolutely. In fact, you preempted some of my answers, Shankar. I was about to say that the what is then next? It is basically unlocking the hybrid model for us. It is no longer. It is going to be a single a way of a window of pushing the brands. It is going to be through digital as well as online as well as offline in the complete ecosystem that is currently being adapted by the most of the stores per se. If I have to look into the hyper local level, even at a modern trade level, that's where there is, as I just got to hear from Sriram, that yes, offline is going to stay here. Along with that, this online of hybrid model is what the new ways of working for the entire retail industry for us to bring the incrementality. Digital brings the incrementality. I'm not saying that digital is going to be the base. And coming to some of the other aspects where, as you rightly mentioned, television is always there to stay forever, and at least for next 10 to 15 years we don't see any kind of major or a drastic change, because of the way it has also expanded its horizon and the offerings to the consumers. It's very competitive, and the way that television shows have been promoted, as Rajika actually mentioned in the beginning of it, is television channels are here to compete with all the offerings and bring the best of the content across globe, which is getting syndicated to the localized language and localized format. That's where the television is continue to grow in our market. I mean Indian market, and especially the regional markets. If I have to look at it, there is a lot of a new adoption of the biggest reality format shows, which was not there in the early 2020s, or if I have to say that 2010 and on. Now those are the incrementality and the kind of scalability that the regional markets have actually adapted very quickly to bring regional at par with almost national level of offering when it comes to a content offering for the viewers and consumers. Again, the print, again, it is with the technology advancement. Print actually, again, plays a very vital role in every brand communications, with the facility of QR code, infographics, and giving social message tags, where print also allows us to expand the reach and spread the communication through the advocacy and virality format for the brand to connect with hyper local marketing as well as the national level marketing. That's what all these mediums are, again complementing each other, is what I would definitely say for the brands. It is not that one is going to supersede other.
Great, thank you, Ramsay. I guess I have another Andy, I guess I have about 15 to 20 more minutes, and I have 4 questions to each one of you. So quickly, we'll wrap it in about 5 minutes each. Okay, now Guru, quickly, you represent national and regional broadcasters and some clients also. Okay, and most of the clients whom you represent, And while we talk about OTT, digital, and all that, do you stroke your brands or clients? Do you guys really have faith in OTT? And you still, which this is what I was telling you, still try and reach out to television to maximize reach. Do you buy television because it is cheaper? You buy it on CPRP basis or whatever it is, or what is your take, Guru? Take us through this in about 3-4 minutes.
Shankar, while OTT is gaining its popularity, but TV hasn't lost its sheen for various reasons. Especially TV is still has the highest reach, and it's very, very essential for many of the product launches. Given, and also with the bark higher analysis that we can do, a lot of things we can measure in terms of ROI much better than, and it is faster, so it becomes much more easier. And if you look at OTT, the advertising options are very limited. Its viewership is also very fragmented, and it's difficult to reach the high-end audience and the paid subscribers. So it's, if you overall look at it, Shankar, it's OTT is an individual media, and TV is a very collective medium. So I strongly feel that it'll take its own time for OTT to grow, and TV will still continue to dominate, including the conventional media. So as Ram said, at least for 15 years, the mainline media is here very strongly to stay.
So guys, my friends in media sales, now you know whom you should reach out to: Guru Prasad Rao and Ram Sai. Tomorrow if they give you a reason saying that no, digital numbers have this, so don't believe them. Okay. So now please immediately after this call, pick up the phone and speak to these guys. Okay, Raghav, I always, if you remember, I asked you this question when I met you in Hyderabad. Have you ever got intimidated by the big FMCG's budget? See, you're actually in a very different situation. So you have a brand, you're a very established brand which is more than 40-50 years old, and you said you're the HUL of that part of the town. And somewhere down the line, when I was going through whatever your product categories and all that, were you strongly banking on your brand ambassador Meena, or Meena doesn't come cheap, she is expensive, you spent a lot of money, and what was the motive? Because I understand there are a lot of people in the category who rely on brand ambassadors, but somewhere down the line I found you're relying too much on her to push your category. Take us through it.
Okay, just for your information, I'm now on celebrity hiring spree. I started off with Rashmika much before Meena, actually. Rashmika for vermicelli, Rashmika and Nadia for vermicelli category for South. Because Rashmika is very popular for Kannada and Telugu. I mean, I want somebody who can connect directly to the audience, convince them. Then Meena for Suji for Tamil Nadu. So obviously you have seen the Tamil advertisement. And then I had chosen Rasi Khanna for my Atta. So I have a different brand ambassador for different one. And now I'm going a much bigger brand ambassador. Now, the main question of intimidation by Biggie's budget. Now, thing is, whatever the budget you could have, ultimately what the product delivers matters. Any amount of a good creative cannot support a product which is not very high quality. It will have probably a trial value. After that, consumers will not return to you. Unlike my brand, which is still numero, in quality, because we have been there and we do it complete integration, both backward and forward, everything. So we have a quality under our control now. We are the only brand who have got 0% Maida product and fortified freely for the consumers with vitamins and minerals. So I still have the upper hand. My product still reigns as a quality champion. So my advertisement only will help push the product more. For example, ITC Ashirwad has followed my footsteps in terms of media mix. But as I see in the market as of now, the trial rate is very poor for their product. So while I'm conscious of their ability to push it forward and to get the right product ahead, I want to keep up my lead in terms of product quality and my media mix. So I'm not really intimidated as of now with their budget or media mix, as I'm currently the pioneer and leader in this category.
Fantastic, fantastic, Raghav. And
I'm
Sriram,
hiring much bigger celebrities from now onwards.
I'll reach out to you now. I'm going to give you a call after this. Sriram, no, with the burgeoning retail boom and more and more channels in regional space, more and more people in OTT across 5 southern states. Now we've now come to a point. As an advertiser, what are your expectations? And to a large extent, I know you and I cannot control the minds of a consumer. What do you feel as a consumer? Should consumer and advertisers' expectations are what? What is it, Sriram? Take us through it, please.
Can you rephrase the question, Shankar? Maybe.
No, okay. Now let me ask.
Crisper.
As an advertiser, what is your expectation? Let me ask that first.
Expectation on the media.
See, with more and more channels in the regional space, more and more OTT players coming in and all that, and it becomes very difficult for you to identify the right medium. So, what are your expectations?
But I think as an advertiser, it completely depends on the brand that we represent or the brand that we are looking for. Coming specific to OTTs, I think today we have only 2 national/international OTT players, and we have half a dozen domestic or regional focused OTT players. Now, AHA is the new kid in the block, and they are making strides in the Telugu language. Now they have just entered Tamil, and I'm very sure they're in for a very long way here. However, beyond buying big movies, the 2 biggies in the OTT space are not innovating in the regional space. Right. So, for example, if we have 200 stores today, and assuming that about 60-70% of them are in tier 2, tier 3 towns, obviously they're not going to be watching an English language movie from the top 2 OTT players. They're consuming a lot of regional content, a lot of OTT content. And of course, if you take YouTube as an OTT channel, that's the primary space for consumption. So I think this trend of chasing OTTs to be part of their portfolio, to be part of their web series, and to be part of their exclusive films, I think it's a very tall ask. I do not think.
Sriram, I want to just ask. Sorry to interrupt. As a consumer, okay, you're also an advertiser. You're also a consumer. I'm saying as a consumer and advertiser, do we really have the time to consume? Don't you feel there's overdose of content in the OTT space? Like, for example, if you look at a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or X, Y, and Z, there's so much of content available today. I understand, there is, I'm just coming to it basically, there is overdose. There's overdose of everything. And half the content you and I and people in the lower part of India, we don't even relate to the content which is there. But there is always claim to fame saying that, I'm in the top 10, I'm in the top 5, I'm in the top 100, and so on and so forth. So just take us through your experience of that.
I politely disagree to your view, Shankar. There are an estimated 80 to 100 channels per language in the TV space. Estimated 80 to 100 channels per language. And we're talking about 12 to 15 languages in the country. We're talking about roughly 20 to 25 English news channels. We're talking about music as a genre. In every language, there are 4 to 5 channels. If you look at GEC, the top GEC channels across the 5 languages, each of them have anywhere between 12 to 15 soap operas per day. Now, if you're saying that there are so many OTTs and so many web series and so many programs, I think the television content outnumbers that by multiple 100 times.
No. I'm saying I'm saying today, Sriram, today if I want to consume a Tamil content, I go to a Sun or a Star or a Z or whatever it is. Okay, now you answered this question. You said that there isn't any content in the national space. which basically, fulfills my need. I don't want to watch 83 because you made it at 150 crores. You get my point. What I'm talking to is about content, like how in television you rightly said, we're talking about 916 channels in India. And the whole point is, we're talking about different languages, different genres, whatever you like, you consume it and go. But my point was that there is a lacuna in the OTT space as far as that is concerned. The smaller players are not able to compete with the biggies for whatever reason. Malayalam today has about 5 to 6 OTT. Manorama Max is doing very well. And AHA is, again, as you rightly said, the new kid on the block. But the point is, when I said overdose, I'm talking about the biggies, pushing the content on you, whether you like it or not. I'm a regional guy. I don't want to consume it. That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's because of the financial muscle that they have in terms of communicating, right?
Correct. Correct.
That will space out, or that will even out at some point in time. Between the top two in the English content, only one of them advertises heavily. The other one doesn't even advertise because they want people to pick up their particular OTT channel. So obviously the number of subscribers are dwindling. We heard 200,000 people have unsubscribed a particular OTT channel in the US and Canada. We do not have numbers in India, thankfully. Otherwise, it will look even uglier than that. I believe that the regional audience will obviously pick up the regional OTTs. Today, they do not have, and AHA doesn't have as much money to promote the new OTT platform as much as an Amazon has got. But that doesn't mean that people will not pick it, because as long as the content, like I'm sure Raghav will agree that the particular talk show hosting Balakrishna Garu in Telugu is the most viewed in terms of millions and billions of seconds. Where did AHA come and promote it? I mean, until my friend told me, I didn't even know such a program existed in Tamil Nadu. Right? But it had a flavor of the Telugu speaking audience, not only in Andhra, Telangana, but across the country. I think content will finally speak for itself, Shankar. And I think if you ask me, do we have time? I think Indians have enough and more of time.
Fantastic. That's a very nice way of looking. Ramsai, the last question. And what level of significance do regional OTT players play in your promotions? Like, for example, between you and Guru, you have various jargons to tell a seller today. CPRP, CPM, break TVRs, and so on and so forth. I'm saying when you come to this space, so what are the jargons which you basically use to confuse the sellers?
Yeah, Shankar, I think you're now confused. So let me actually put it very simple. See, the regional skew of OTT is almost a 40% share. This is what the data says. And whether we believe it or we don't believe it, our industry operates purely on aided decision making, which data comes into the forefront for us to take some of the calls, right? And also it substantiates the fact that we are the 5th largest in the world in terms of the retail destination. So these two things are actually marrying together in terms of the practicality when it comes to the media. The regional OTT importance in the media plans for the brands. So there are few takeouts from even Raghav and Guru and Sriram said that today the influencer marketing is becoming a very important aspect. And as Raghav mentioned, those are all like top celebrities and all the brands which are all actually aspiring brands. They cannot actually afford to go and sign a top celebrities, right? This is where the OTT space actually came into play to offer the entry level and mid level influencers to them, where actually it has helped to build the brand at a local market level, because these are all local celebs. There all could be a YouTube fandom based, or there could be a first timers on the web series. This is how the regional OTTs actually come into the play of the brand campaigns, because it is not only sheerly about gaining the impressions from them. The reaching out an audience, there are plethora of ways to reach out an audience, but reaching out the audience at their mind space is very, very important for the brand to actually see a call to action. So that's where the regional OTTs actually complements the growth of the aspiring brands in the country today. Another fact which I would like to say, that we spoke about AHA, again the library that the OTT platforms has got today, and more than there is a Hoicho is another platform which is based out of West Bengal. has got more than 80 original shows lined up, of which they've actually, exhausted close to 30 or something, and 40 to go. And again, it is not an ad based. It is a completely integration based platform where the brand messaging, brand communication, consumption messaging, or solve for the brand is actually being brought. It is also a model where it is actually not an impression based, where for the planners or a brand to plan. Again, you look at, I would say that again, AHA has got close to 20 web series they've actually already produced, and they've entered into Tamil Nadu market on April 14th. It's again already talked about. Apart from that, there are about 13 other players are already there in the space, almost starting from a lakh of download to a 5 lakh download, right? Right from Kode Malayalam to Ada Times and Regal Talkies, where Tamil, which is a new one which has been emerging, Planet Marathi, Ole Plus in Odia, and Gujarati Chitti Shore in Gujarati, and Talkies in Telugu, Konkani and Kannada, and Knee Stream in Malayalam, Real Drama in Assamese, Chupal TV in Punjabi. We can actually go on. These are all like, anybody who is actually focusing on any particular deeper pocket, then for them, they come at a brand solve, wherein when I get into a broadcast that actually cost a huge lot of money for the brands. That's what a simple, idea, submission of, how the OTT and especially the regional OTTs play an importance and significance in the existing as well as the startup and aspiring brands. And also another interesting fact that, what I've been expecting is that, gone up, if you would have remember that in early 2000s, there used to be a 5 rupees recharge coupons for the mobile service providers. Today, no wonder that you will get the same 5 rupees recharge coupon to watch one show from any of those outlets. And you just go and collect that 5 rupees coupon and just scratch it and watch the series, whatever the series you want to watch. That is also a way to go, how the consumers can actually get value for what they want to watch. And it is actually a VOD format, a simplified way with a less expensive proposition called pay per video or pay per day or pay per week format. That is what the next level of evolution I am actually, as an expert in this market, expecting to happen. I think that's what all about regional OTTs, Shankar.
Thank you so much, Ramsai. And I guess it's been an excellent session, and we'll have to wrap it up now. Thank you, Guru, Raghav, Sriram, and Ramsai. Looking forward to seeing you all very, very soon. And over to you, Andy and Rajika. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shankar. That was very informative. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be with us today. Hello, audience. I'm Andy Chua, and I'll be co-hosting with my colleague Rajika today. Now, don't go away. Our next session is coming right up.
Welcome to the second session of the day. Join us as the best minds in the business come together to discuss the art and soul of content, its trends, and confluence of great storytelling and strategy to create the power and engagement that has led to a boom in regional content in India. Leading the session is Rahul Mishra, Head of Marketing and Communications, Shimaru Entertainment Limited, and a huge supporter of Promax. Welcome, Rahul.
Thank you, Rajika. Thank you so much. Very excited to be here today. I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Should I take it off from here?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Great. Hi, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting session. And firstly, thank you to all the audiences tuned in on a Friday afternoon to listen to some very engaging conversation. As Rajika mentioned, my name is Rahul Mishra, and I currently head marketing and communications at Shimaru Entertainment. Why this is so exciting for me is because I'm dabbling both with the broadcast side and the OTT and digital side, and a lot on the regional play. So I'm looking forward to having a very engaging discussion and learning a lot today from some of the stalwarts who joined us today. So before we start the panel, I just wanted to quickly take a few minutes to introduce our panel members today. So we have 3 esteemed panelists discussing about how to elevate the regional experience, starting with Ajit Thakur, who is currently the CEO of AHA, and it's an over-the-top OTT player, very, very strong in the regional play, currently operating in the Telugu market, and now obviously the Tamil expansion. It's been a great news we all have been hearing about. Obviously, Ajit brings a depth of experience across organizations we work with, UTV, Star India, Sony Pictures, Unilever, and I'm going to be having a great discussion with him today. Moving on, we have Ajit Verghese. Ajit, again, needs no introduction, a very, very popular man in the media industry. Ajit previously used to lead the Wavemaker agency, part of WPP Group. I think, if I say it correctly, I think he was managing a team of about 3,000 people globally. It's a huge, huge business he was managing. And ever since he's taken on ShareChat and Moj, we have been seeing a lot of expansions they've been doing with acquisitions and new sort of formats being rolled out. Again, looking forward to a very exciting discussion with Ajit, because I think ShareChat and Moj are essentially the regional version of social media we've seen, and the pioneers in the space. And interesting to see how they sort of see this entire regional experience opening up more in the years to come, and how does the monetization work in an ad format. I think that's something which I'm looking forward to learning from Ajit today. And lastly, we have Ashish Golwalkar, who is currently the head of content for SET, Sony Live, and the SET business as well. So he leads both the general entertainment channel for Sony and the OTT platform content. Obviously, he's also got about 2 decades of experience. He's done a lot of work in the non-scripted format space. I've heard of Ashish's name winning multiple awards for the work he's done with, I think, Z and Disney, and obviously with Sony for a long time now. So I think let's start the discussion. It's going to be very exciting, and we will try and take a few audience questions as well towards the end of the session. I think Ashish is with us. I can't see him as yet, but I hope he is. Okay, I think he should be here. Anyways, we'll start the discussion, and hopefully, Ashish, we will see him on the screen as well soon. Good. So I think, hi, Ashish. Sorry, I couldn't see you earlier, but now I can see you very well. Good. So thank you so much. So I'm going to, for the ease of discussion, I'm going to call you Mr. Verghese, Mr. Thakur, and Ashish, so that we clear about who we're talking to. I think the first question I want to sort of throw up to the panel, and this is open for all 3 of you to respond to. What we've been seeing, obviously the data is mind-boggling, both on broadcast, both on OTT. 60% of consumption is going to be on regional languages in the next 2 to 3 years for television. Similarly, close to about 55% is going to be on the entire digital OTT ecosystem. Obviously, the growth is much higher in the digital space. So it was about 30% 2 years ago, and now it's going to go to 55%. And similarly, about 5 to 10% growth in the broadcast space. So this topic, I think, is sort of, nobody can escape this whole big shift we are seeing in the Indian ecosystem. And I think 3 of you are the best sort of posed to answer some of the questions I'm going to pose out today. So my first question is, when you sort of blend in the content, regional nuances into your storytelling experience, obviously your brand starts to get more relatable to the audience you're talking to, because you're in that flavor, talking to the same audience who wants to receive content in that flavor. But do you see that you can actually create a brand which, and this sort of is more digital, I would say, do you see that happening, that a brand can have a national appeal, which is the Hindi English appeal, and also have the same regional connect, at the same time? Or do brands necessarily have to create a sub brand when they have to go to a regional market to appeal to that sense, those sensitivities? It could be around how the branding is done, how the brand talks, because sometimes you have a central brand which speaks in a different way. And when you go to a regional market, do you have to change your strategy? Do you have to build something differently, or can you do one strategy for all regional and Hindi as well? So let's start with maybe Mr. Verghese for this.
Sure, Rahul. Thank you. I think, you are taking Hindi as a national versus regional, but I just believe that if you start distinguishing languages in India, you have around 10% of people speaking English, and the rest is all Indic languages. We call it Indic languages because anything which is a language other than English is so easily kind of pushed back or ignored in India today that we think that it's not the mainstream content, right? So I would love to believe that even Hindi has got regional nuances. And when I start talking about languages, I think language is kind of an identifier for culture. And I think when you start mixing the nuances of culture, then it starts building up much more larger variations across India, right? I think, and most importantly, whether we are as a platform, whether we are an advertiser, whether we are in the content business, I think cultural nuances is more critical to us than just the language as an identifier. And that's where I think what we have seen across ShareChat, across Moj, is that when we start looking at the behavior of people, the content consumption, the kind of cultural nuances, differences, or the content differences that they share or consume, or even upload across our UGC apps, those are where the differences starts emerging much more granularly. And I think, and if you look at even whether it's Bollywood business, whether it's content business today, and these are stuff that I think the content publishers and users have been able to capture going forward. So I think the biggest difference to me is not language. It's actually the cultural nuances. Language just brings it forward. And I think increasingly brands and advertisers are catching on those nuances and saying, how do I make sure that I can connect with my audience slightly deeper than just a standard language of communication or a standard format of communication?
Mr. Varghese, just lead on that. Do you see that ShareChat and Moj sort of have a different way the brand is perceived in every cultural or regional market? Is there a differentiation you bring in, or do you keep a central umbrella brand appeal to all your audience sets?
Highly regional and highly differentiated. So and when I talk, I mean, even ShareChat and Moj itself is a slightly different app ecosystem. So ShareChat is a completely social ecosystem where you're discovering content in a language that you prefer. So the nuances of language is much more identifiable. The content taste, the kind of trending topics. There are obviously commonalities, and then there are differences. Commonality, I mean, if there is a game like cricket, there is or a Bollywood content, there is commonalities of interest groups. But otherwise, if I start looking at nuances of content consumption across ShareChat, that differences comes out hugely different across the. I mean, look at it this way. I mean, 10%. I mean, we are not there in English today, right? So we can identify these differences much more because we don't end up spending a lot of time in the top 10% content that tracks across English audiences. So we are completely across 15 languages, right? Moj is slightly different. Moj is very young. It's a only video app. The consumption patterns and the kind of the micro influencers, regional influencers, the scope it has now provided for creator economy is completely different. So people are enjoying every moment, not worried about how they look, how they. It's about the capturing that movement and sharing with the external world. It's allowing the world to discover them. So if I start differentiating these two apps, ShareChat is an app which actually you are trying to discover the world through the cultural lenses, versus Moj is an app where world is discovering you.
Interesting. Good. I'm going to move to Ashish now. Ashish, in your experience of sort of running the entire content for Sony Live specifically, do you feel that when you enter regional markets, do you feel that the market looks at your app as a Hindi English app and also offering a slice of regional, or do they accept you as an app which is built for the region from the flavor? And do you sort of focus that on your content, and how do you sort of play around with that?
Yeah. Rahul, at the core of, app is just a, technology piece, and, the core of it, the heart of it is the content. So no matter how much localization I would want to do, at the end of it, if the content is not local, if the content is not hyper local actually, then it won't resonate. So at the end of it, all content makers, all apps, people like us who are kind of attempting to now go regional. We already have, have had a kind of a soft launch there. We've started our, regional offerings with some, eclectic mix of films, and we are about to. I mean, we've kind of commissioned a few shows in each of the languages. That's Telugu, Tamil, and Malayalam. And in the Q by the end of the beginning of Q1, Q2, sorry, we'll start our services there formally. However, this has been our learning actually. While Sony Live, last 2 years, what we've seen, our stated objective, our content, objective is to tell stories of India. And India means every part of India. The stories that we are hearing, in the southern languages. To begin with, I don't call regional languages for my purpose. I call it's Indian content in Tamil or Indian content in Malayalam, because they are so distinct yet Indian, that you can't really compare. And often we do mistake that there is Hindi and there is regional. I think that itself I don't personally don't subscribe to. I think we are I would say a bouquet of flowers that have different fragrances, and together that's called India. So I think that distinction about each of the regions and the kind of stories, and even those regions have their own sub divisions, and those things have to come out. In my opinion, if we can easily, consumers. I mean, I don't have to say this is like I always say that we are increasingly becoming language agnostic. We are consuming Korean content, Turkish content, at ease. Then why not? And we've seen that. I mean, I'm not saying it just to make a statement. We've seen it. The kind of films that we don't have Hindi dubbing rights, the consumption is really very encouraging. Of those South films in the north. So people are understanding that how do we consume content which is not really dubbed but yet subtitled, because the universal emotion is same. Initially, I think it would have happened earlier if there was access. Thanks to digital, now people have access. I mean, when you hear a good film, when you hear a good piece of content, it's spread, and you can always type on the search engine, and you can get where it's available, and you can watch it. So I think I mean, coming back to what you were saying, that do we want to localize? Yes, we will localize. We will localize the content, because app doesn't need any localization. I mean, it will be called Sony Live. It will have the same, of course, the UI UX will be similar. It will be customized to that particular region. Those customizations will happen, but otherwise, I think the content has to speak the particular language, and I think that's what we believe.
Again, very interesting, Ashish. I think you nailed it right. I think if you're able to bring out the right storytelling experiences, and that's when the brand connect will automatically happen with the consumers. They won't see you as an outsider or somebody who doesn't understand the nuances if you've got the pulse right in storytelling itself. Interesting. I think now, Mr. Thakur, I would like to hear your thoughts on this, because I'm going to take the liberty and sort of say that the origin of AHA Media has been in the regional space, right? It's started off from the regional space, and you're expanding into other languages, very quickly. Do you see, is that a strength or an advantage you will have over a few national players as compared to this, or do you see that there's no real advantage of being known as a regional app rather than a national app?
Hi Rahul, hi Ajit, hi Ashish, long time. Rahul, firstly, thank you for bringing friends together. We haven't caught up in a long time. Like, I don't think I've seen Ajit in about 10 years. So I'll answer your original question, Rahul. I think there are two ways to get to that, right? What Sony Live or Netflix is doing is there's a big global brand or national brand, and they will develop regional and local footprints. Our starting point was different. We've gone the bottom-up approach, where we've taken language at a time. And I think, I'll give you one quick, anecdote to explain why we are such strong believers in what we call now a 100% local positioning. When we set up Aha Media, the parent company for Aha, the original brief from the promoters to all of us was that, let's launch in the 4 South languages. And in the first couple of months, I traveled the length and breadth of AP and Telangana. And the data from telcos showed that the youth is watching on average about 3.5 hours of content daily. All the people I met were watching 6 to 8 hours daily. And they're watching everything, like Ashish said, from Korean to Turkish to Tamil, Malayalam, and all of Hindi and Hollywood. And when you ask them about the local content, there wasn't really much, even though there were 3 or 4 apps that were active in Telugu language at that point of time. And I believe in this country, every 100 miles, culture, language, politics, everything changes. And what we stumbled upon at that point of an opportunity was saying that let's not do South, let's do local. And we took up Telugu because that's where the company is headquartered as the first language. And everything that we've seen since then has been absolutely fantastic, because there is space. Do they watch, Scam and Money Heist? Absolutely. But there's space for them to watch a lot of the local content in their native language. And that exactly is the space that we took on. But as per the second question, or the very good question, is that one part of it is content, but there's also about building a brand identity. So we didn't stop there in terms of local content sourcing. We actually got 2 local stars as brand ambassadors, Mr. Allu Arjun and Mr. Vijay Deverakonda at that point of time. We said, okay, Hyderabad is a battleground for everybody. We'll go to the next 30 towns and then the next 60 towns and the next 100 tier 3 towns and villages and build a brand there. We also said that because we are only Telugu, we can give them 1 piece of content every week, right? If we had taken the same fund and 4 languages, we would have given them 10 every year. And that's a lot. But when we're doing only 1 language, we're able to do that. And our new campaign is reflective of that, where we said, Aha is the new Telugu habit. And then the question was, okay, if we have gone on the local strategy, not a regional strategy, how do we expand? And so we went back to the drawing board. We've just launched Aha Tamil about a week back on Tamil New Year last week. And as we talk, I mean, we've seen a great response to that. And we re-engineered the back end of the engine. And like I said, there are 2 ways to do it. We had an option of putting all the Tamil content and together on the same platform with the same UI UX. The platform backend is the same, but we've re-engineered that once a person selects the language, the Tamil viewer will get 100% Tamil content. We built the brand further. I mean, today, Mr. Allu Arjun is a big brand in the country, but we took a call that we will go and get 2 local brand ambassadors who are fully Tamil, 100% Tamil. So we got Simbu and Anirudh. And the entire team that is doing content and marketing is not based in Hyderabad for Tamil. They're based in Chennai. So I believe that there is a fantastic big opportunity for both of these models to coexist. And the space for local is very high. Today we're discussing hyper local, where in Tamil, we are saying Madurai and Coimbatore are very different, distinct identities, and we'll create content for them. And for the Tamilians in Malaysia, we'll do separate content for them. So that's like segregating that population further. So I believe that there is a big space for a local strategy, and the sum of the 4 locals versus, Hindi or English downwards, which one will win? I think both will, because there's space for over the next 3 to 5 years before consolidation happens, for space for growth for both. But there is a big local market out there.
I think very well said, Mr. Thakur. I think a beautiful strategy to sort of localize your offering to an extent where you just leave no questions in the consumer's mind of what they're going to get into. And I think that's a great strategy. And I'm wishing you all the best for your success in the Tamil market too.
Thank you.
I think, but the very, very interesting point which you left with, Mr. Thakur, is your sort of, so when we take languages, they're not necessarily always focused around a region. So for example, Telugu is just not for Andhra Pradesh or Telangana. There are Telugu audiences sitting in Mumbai, Delhi, parts of US, Europe, other places as well. How, and obviously as a digital OTT brand, I'm sure there are ways to reach out to these audiences through your performance marketing, your digital marketing. But do you see any merit in sort of building connect with these slightly smaller audience bases who are spread across, apart from the core region you're operating in? And I could start with you, Mr. Thakur, on that before we go to other people.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. In fact, today one of our biggest growth engines is the Telugu population in the US. Just one market alone, we have over 100,000 subscribers, and who are obviously, from an ARPU perspective, also there's a different equation there. And I believe that the first part of the journey can be done through digital and performance marketing. But unless you are in these communities, and remember, the OTT game we are playing is different from broadcasting, where if we don't connect and engage, we don't exist 3 months or 1 year later. They have 10 other things to choose from. So I think there's an opportunity for deeper community connect. I think there's an opportunity for partnerships with telcos and carriers there to bundle and reach out to them. I also think, and we've done that for the Telugu US, we launched a show which was fully shot with American actors and crew called American Dream, but a Telugu show, but targeting that market. And right now we're talking about doing something in Malaysia, like doing a film which is Indian, Malaysian, Tamil, single language, but bilingual in terms of the cultures. And I think that market is set to grow. And that's why what I referred to that. But we cannot say that the AHA Tamil strategy for Tamil Nadu will work as it is replicated for Tamilians in Malaysia or Singapore or Middle East. And we'll have to continue to innovate and create content, marketing programs, community programs for them.
And do you see the reverse happening as well? Like the show you made for the American audiences, did that get any traction in the core Telugu market?
Oh, absolutely. Because, language barriers are breaking. We are in the middle of a storm called KGF, right? It's broken every single record possible. And who would have thought that a film from Canada, which is not considered to be the biggest, industry even down south, would have one of the biggest films. So absolutely travels. But I think every content should be made with one single purpose. In the primary target market, it must work. Then it will work everywhere else. If it doesn't work in the primary target market, rarely does it work outside. So both happen, but I think there's a big pockets out there all over the world that we must continue to cater to and treat them as separate, distinct local groups.
Got it. Thanks. I think that's useful. Yeah. Sorry, Ajit.
I just wanted to add a point to both Ashish and Ajit. I mean, this is very interesting topics that you build. How language barriers are getting broken across geographies because of content acceptability, translation. But at the same time, when I look at brand ads from an advertiser point of view, this simple translations doesn't work. I mean, whatever we have seen in our app ecosystems, and it's a bit of surprise, right? So it's a bit of contradictory analogy, right? I mean, the content is breaking this barrier very nicely, and I can see huge successes in the last few years, especially when the content became less and people wanted to experiment with new content. Suddenly we saw the acceptability is huge, right? But when we have seen, when brand ads change from an English, even from a Hindi to a language, then the click response engagement rate suddenly starts shooting up. And we have seen this because we have started this monetization in the last 1.5 years, and obviously we are a language-based app. So we encourage a lot of advertisers to start thinking language advertising per se. So 7 languages, 10 languages, just simple translations, and those are showing increasing response, better responses than their standard English ads that they used to run across all languages. And that's like a big one. Even in video, for example, when we start looking at regional influencers in Tamil Nadu or West Bengal doing a brand hashtag or influencer marketing, that seems to have a better connect compared to a national. And national obviously reach is higher. And the scope is higher, but the connections and the UGC development and the lingos that they use absolutely has deeper connect with the audience. So that's a slightly different analogy that we have seen in the brand advertising. And I would say finally all of it is content, right? But there is a bit of differences that we have seen.
Yeah, I think so I can speak as a marketer myself, we see that happening in some of the markets when we take that extra effort to localize, to add in that flavor, and it really does wonder, both from content and marketing point of view. I think continuing with Mr. Verghese on this point, are you, in your app ecosystem, the two big app ecosystem you've built, are you seeing any sort of cross-pollination happening between languages because of certain favorability towards a certain event or a celebrity? And do you sort of encourage that in terms of the UGC content you got people put up? So do you sort of encourage a Tamil speaker to get exposed to some of the content you have created in another language? It could be Malayalam or it could be Bhojpuri. Does that happen in the app ecosystem?
Ours is a very UGC based platform, right? And pretty much these things happen organically. So it's not as if we have to kind of promote an influencer from one region to the other. If the content is great, if the power of communication is great, there is a bit of influence happening. So automatically they start getting popular across the nation. But that, I mean, we don't have to distinguish where their influence grows, because this is pretty very organic way of reaching, right? So we don't do the boosting or a promotion artificially to do that, but we have seen organic way of some become popular, some start even a regional influencer suddenly starts getting 5 million, 6 million, 10 million followers. And that happens across, I mean, maybe 60-70% is still in that geography, but 30-40% is coming from other geographies. So that means that influence of that, their power of storytelling is catching the attention of other audiences.
That's great to know. And that's pretty much in the past, that was what Hindi or English was doing, right? As a main catalyst. Very interesting. Ashish, from a Sony Live perspective, and especially when you are working on new show commissioning, and I'm talking about now the Hindi mainstream commissioning, which you guys do, and you've created, many award-winning formats. Do you keep a certain regional or a language influence in mind when you're going to be creating stories? So for example, there's a high internet penetration in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Do you keep a certain flavor in mind when you create even Hindi original shows so that you can cater to audiences from those markets? Sorry, you're on mute, Ashish.
Yeah. I'm saying yes and no. Yes, we take care of the dialects, and because it requires, it just creates authenticity to the overall storytelling. So let's say we have a show like Maharani, it's based in Bihar, so it's bound to have that dialect. We had Scam, which is very Mumbai, which was happened in Mumbai in 1992. So of course it had, we have a show called Gullak, which is doing very well these days. It just, the season 3 is just, and we are receiving fantastic love from people. That is based somewhere in North India. We've not kind of identified a city, but somewhere in the around Kanpur, let's say. So it has that dialect. So yes, of course, whatever content demands, we just to make it authentic and core to the promise that we've given or stated, we do that. But just because somewhere the internet penetration is higher, or then let's add some bit of Telugu. I think that's being a bit clever, and we want to avoid that. I mean, when we go to Telugu, we will ensure that we create authentic stuff. Hopefully, we are just beginning. I think Aha, Ajit, they've been doing it well for a time, and I mean for a while. We still have not started, but yeah, our attempt will be to create authentic content which is true to that particular region, that particular geography. So tomorrow, let's say, for instance, I think one of the shows that you are referring to, I don't think any maker would thought that let's add a Tamil track and hence it will be I mean, I personally don't think that happens. I think it's too clever. If they've thought about it and done it, they're too bright and too intelligent. We would want to stay away from that. We'll let the organically content dictate what it wants. But coming back to what you were saying, that let's say if there is a show wherein we can base it in Hyderabad, and because there is a track there, of course, why not? But not thinking that it will do well in Hyderabad, let's add a Hyderabadi track in the show. That will never do.
By the way, some of the movies do that in South. So they add a Hindi track or a Tamil track in a Malayalam movie, and they do this cross pollination. But like you said, it's trying to be smart.
Or the casting, sometimes you genuinely
Casting, yes,
it's
casting,
happened in the past.
writers, technicians. I think these are some things that it's not. I mean, we don't have a choice. I mean, there are only as many good people, in each of the. That cross pollination is bound to happen. It's happening rapidly. It is going to just increase. In fact, from Bengal, the writing talent, the technicians, the directors, even the DOPs. I'm sure there is a crunch of, suddenly there is so much of production that's happening around, thanks to the pandemic out of our way, hopefully. There is a outburst of productions. There are films that are getting produced, all OTTs. There are so many shows that I see in every city. I mean, we were shooting a show in Bhopal recently, and it's one of the darling cities for the Hindi content makers. I just realized that we were shooting 4 shows there. So I mean, that's the level of. So yeah, I mean, we are in fact getting a lot of technicians from everywhere. I mean, from Bengal, from South, of course. Yeah.
Good. Interesting. So yeah, I think what Ashish you was saying is that I think you and the organization belief is to be true to the core audience. You're going to go out, bring out the best story formats, and not really worry about appealing every part of the country and make it a force fit into the storytelling. That's what you want to stay away from. And I think I agree. I think that's very important.
Actually, Ajit said that sometime back that if it the target market, it has to first appeal to them. Everything else is bonus and secondary. I mean, you may do it, great, but first it has to appeal to the main TG.
Yeah, correct. I think my next question is so we've been hearing a lot about, and I think some of you already spoken about that, is a story is essentially which connects to the audience, right? So a story can have an appeal for a certain region because of the way it's built. It could be an international show, it could be a Hindi show, it could be an English show. Is language the determining factor of a success of that show in that market, or is it more around the storytelling experience? So can I just give a Spanish show to an audience in Tamil Nadu, which is sort of relatable to that audience? Or do I necessarily have to add the filter of language into that sort of storytelling experience? And maybe Mr. Thakur, you could sort of share your insights over here, because I know you've looked at international markets as well. Have you tried to appeal to the non-Telugu, Tamil diaspora audiences as well?
So fundamentally, no, because I principally believe, and Ashish was alluding to that also, that a story organically must connect with a primary audience. And if it's based on a universal insight, then typically it travels. I'll give you an example outside of India, because we talked a lot about the southern languages. China, okay, and Indian films opening in China. It's not that a lot of films have released in China from India, but the ones that have really broken through, in fact, one of the biggest ones, which was marketed by Amir, but he was a guest appearance there, was Secret Superstar. From the Eros label at one point of time when I was working there, we took Bajrangi Bhaijan, because these are stories that are universal. So it will travel. Money Heist travels not because it's in Spanish, because the story connects with everybody else. But I don't think the creators set out to make it. I'll give you an example of something closer home, because I mean, I happen to know the star, Pushpa. Pushpa is a fabulous Telugu film, but it's based on a very, very real, hard, insights-driven drama. And that is what allowed it to connect with everybody. They didn't set out to make a pan-India film. They made a fantastic drama, which then traveled. So I think the power of selection of stories and then executing is at the heart. You keep an audience in mind. Languages just happens to be the origin point. And I think more than cinema, more than television, OTT is allowing the barriers to break in terms of how this story can reach a worldwide audience. But not every story works. Like if you take genres, I think crime and drama travel a lot more globally than, say, a comedy, which is much more local in its flavor and all of it. So I think that is a big factor that I think determines that. I don't think people start out by making bilinguals or trilinguals. Yes, you do cast, sometimes keeping that character, again, it comes from the character. But I think the story is about universal insights, and the more universal the insights are, the more likely it is to travel. OTT is just enabling that to happen much faster than in television era. Money Heist would have come to us 5 years later, and on a non-primary placed channel which is at 420 frequency, that's gone. It's all here, and you can choose, you can pick what you want to do. Share chat, and there'll be a chat on share chat, and then people will discover it and they'll come and watch it on some platform.
Yeah.
So I'm a fundamental believer that we must tell good stories irrespective of language. The business strategies are different for Sony Live and AHA.
Agree. I think, Mr. Varghese, when you work with a lot of brands, and brands come to you with certain challenges that my brand has a high recall in, say, Orissa, but is not as well known in Maharashtra. And can you run a campaign for us which educates, all your large set of audiences engaging with you on a daily basis? What is the first thing you tell them? Is that give me your existing messaging, or is it something like you have to relook at the entire strategy? What's your first advice to these brands when they come to you?
In fact, there are a lot more questions on the aspects that you just spoke about, and we sometimes struggle between saying we are a national app, we can run national also, and we can also run regional, right? But I think advertisers, or the challenges that brands or businesses face, they have clearly, like you've harped upon that one point. Can you crack the South market for me? Can you get my biscuit consumption is good in West and North, but specifically, can you crack the code in Tamil Nadu? Those are the kind of conversations we are having. And therefore, what are the consumer insights? What are the trending topics? What are the we have a format called creator ads. So not run the national, there is a merit of running national creatives and national, the storytelling that they have created across 3 to 6 months, right? But this starts losing power by after the third exposure. So we have a format called where consumers can actually create ads with the same guidelines and storytelling, but different contextual settings and very localized. So today, a lot of clients, even clients who do performance advertising, has given us the freedom to create. Let's say they give us 50 lakhs, 1 crore a month, and they say, get me 10 creator ads and let the creator ads perform. You can take it out if it doesn't perform. You can create a new one that you want to perform, but make sure that this has got local connections, context, and nuances built into those creator ads. We have influencer ad mechanisms. We have things that you pick up from the consumer trends on share chat and start connecting that back into whether it's festivals, whether it's astrology. I mean, imagine people who listen to music, romance, even Kavi Sammelan, things like that changes each by geography. And can you pick those nuances and connect the brand back into the consumer life? So a lot more. See, one is obviously the power of story and the brand and the guidelines, but the rest is about context, wordplay, emotions, and that's where the deeper connect starts building up. And that's when clients start evaluating whether, typical the IDA model. Are we moving in the awareness consideration model, or are you now starting to influence a bit of preference, purchase behavior, or engagements, which a lot of these newer formats and short video allows us to experiment, fail, discover better ways of communicating in a much faster way than you could have done in a traditional medium.
Yeah, I agree. And so sometimes you can actually create a brand story which is fairly different from what they are representing in another region. And that's thanks to the actually digital, social, and OTT all, I would say. We won't have a lot of time, but I just want to get some quick thoughts from three of you. And I'll keep this to the context of regional right now. There's a lot of technological advancements happening, and one of them is essentially 5G. And I know a lot of, I think all of us here are sort of gearing up towards what it has in store for us. Do you see any sort of added acceleration you will witness once 5G rolls out in this country, more than maybe what you would have a push on Hindi or English? Do you see that happening in respective languages you operate in? And we can start with Ashish to get some thoughts from you. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any technological intervention results, I mean, for better results in, higher penetration. I'm, more into, the content making. So I think from that point of view, business-wise, I'm sure it will have an impact. But from purely content point of view, I think, you will be able to have, higher file size, which means that the resolution, the way, the entire transaction of video files happens, I think that can be better. The end output for particularly the connected TV that you see today will definitely see a lot of change, because you will then be able to have a higher bandwidth at which you can stream content, and can consume content. So I think that definitely is going to I mean, the
Are you
user
creating more?
experience is.
Are you creating more, Ashish, because of the 5G? Are you
We
sort of looking
already
at more?
are creating content in 4K. I think most of our shows are 4K. Of course, we are not using that for now, but yeah, I mean, we are 4K prepared. So I think the moment this the bandwidth issues are sorted, but it will take time, because ultimately the diversity in the country is so much that by the time the 5G becomes a reality for a large mass, it will take time. But yeah, we are prepared. I mean, from content point of view, yes. And yeah, I mean, over to Ajit. I think he can throw some insights on the business impact.
Sure, thanks, Ashish. I think let's start with Mr. Thakur on this.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Because I think a large part of tier 2, tier 3 and rural is still they don't have access to great bandwidth. I think between 5G and the aggressive rollout by both the telcos and others of broadband, I think that's a must. And like Ashish was saying, 4K and 8K and all is a reality. We need to get it there. But the good thing about India is that I don't think the pace of 5G will stop our youngsters from finding a way to access. They will figure out a way to download and watch it later. So I think it's about, technology is welcome, but I think technology, apart from, experience, should also help make it cheaper. And I think that's a big thing for them, because data consumption will go up as we give them better quality. And I think between the telcos and us, I think it will be quite a self-fulfilling ecosystem where hopefully we'll be able to give them better content, better quality at lower cost, but to a much larger target group than we have currently. I mean, SVOD unbundled was 10 million in 2020. By December this year, it should be about 40 to 50 million. So that's the rate it is growing. And I think OTT will hit 100 million, mark much sooner than any of us thought, partly driven by the lockdown, but I think partly driven by just this great Indian jugaad. If there's good content, we'll find a way to watch it.
True. Mr. Varghese, I think your quick thoughts. Are you sort of looking at making more business expansions on the back of 5G? Do you see sort of some new models emerging in the entire social and short format video ecosystem you're managing?
100%. I mean, I'll probably break this into 3 buckets. I mean, if you look at the entire app ecosystem of ShareChat and Moj has come in because of 4G. So ever since 2015-16, 4G gave access to internet is not a problem for the larger geographies of India, and that through a lot of these differences in content behavior, differences in taste, differences in consumption, the cultural nuances started moving away from the top 100, 120 million to almost 400 to 500 million, right? So that if you ask me, the founders, we started ShareChat almost 5-6 years back and Moj in the last 2 years, the entire existence and the popularity, and we have reached a 150 to 200 million range because of exactly this, right? So, and the second factor is to me is the macroeconomic factors of where India is positioned today. I think the next decade belongs to India in many ways, and that decade, obviously the top 100, 150 million are global citizens and we have access to everything. There is enough we have been built over the last 15 years in the internet economy, right? But I think the next phase of growth, real India growth, will happen in the next decade because of the next 500 to 800 million. And I mean, the sooner the 5G gets adopted, to me, the sooner the 1 billion population gets connected to the mainstream media. We have reached around, I think the 4G moved from 15-20% internet connection to almost a 50-55% today. And I think that will go to 80-85% if 5G fully becomes active. So that's the other thing. Now, the last bit that we are gung-ho about as a business is I think we are trying to look at China's success in video commerce, social commerce, the entire influencer and creator economy, giving livelihoods to the larger population of India. And I think especially 4G, we are seeing success, but I think with 5G coming in and 1 billion people getting connected to mainstream media, I think this whole space of social commerce, video commerce, direct to consumer, all of this space will completely explode, because it will solve what it solved for China, which is the infrastructure and access problem, and which will connect the 1 billion population to the mainstream. To me, these three factors will dictate our next decade. Now, whether it happens in 1 year, 2 years, gets accentuated, or whether it takes 5 years, as a business, we are completely gung-ho and backing this.
Also, exciting times ahead for, I think, both consumers and media and entertainment companies is what I'm seeing right now. And I think we've run out of time. We have some questions, but I don't think we'll have time to take that up. I think we're going to close this conversation today. And thank you once again, Mr. Ajit Varghese, Mr. Ajit Thakur, and Ashish for
thanks, Rahul. Thanks,
spending time with us. It was a great conversation. I'm going to pass it on to Andy, who's eagerly waiting to take it over now, because we were on. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate this. All right, audience, our next session is at 4:15. Make sure to come back then. We have more interesting session lined up for you. So see you at 4:15.
Hope you've enjoyed the earlier session. At Promax, we always believe in pushing creative limits to bring together global thinkers from whom we can learn, get inspired, and work towards building a global community with deeper connections. We have with us here today two of the most well-known media experts. Please allow us to welcome Ashish Ferwani, Partner Media and Entertainment, Ernst & Young India, and Ravish Kumar. He's the head of Regional Entertainment, Kannada and Marathi Cluster, Viacom 18.
Hi, Rajka. Hi, Ashish. How are you? How are you? Good to be here. Likewise. Yeah. So I think, this year when we were releasing the FICCI report, something that struck me when I did almost 70 interviews with CEOs. And something that struck me was how almost all the CEOs spoke about regional as the big bet that they were placing over the next 2 to 3 years for India. Then I kind of backpedaled and did some more homework. And I realized something very interesting, that TV viewership, English is like 1%, Hindi is maybe 45%, and the balance 54-55% is regional. And when I tried to look at that on OTT, I got some crazy numbers as well. I mean, YouTube said more than 93% or 94% of their consumption was non-English. And even on OTT platforms, as much as 30+% was now regional consumption. And I said, is there even so much content? So I did some more deep dive into content production. And I was amazed to see that almost, over 50% of content produced for OTT platforms was regional language content apart from Hindi and English. And it kind of blew my mind. And I said, this is huge, right? When did this happen? And this change has obviously been happening. It's not something that happened overnight, but regional has been happening. So I'm going to poke your brains on this, Ravish, all right? Across everything regional, to try and understand more of what the hell is happening in this space and why is it suddenly coming and becoming so big, right? So I'm going to start with one thing. All my friends in the broadcasting world, whether it's Mahesh at your end or Ashish Sehgal at Zee or whatever, they always cry that ad rates on regional are totally under-indexed to start with, right? Do you agree? Do you think it has headroom to grow? Why is it under-indexed? Will it get corrected? Let's start with that.
So I think you hit upon a very fundamental thing, what drives the business, which is advertising, yeah. And that basically funds most of our content. So it's a great place to start, Ashish.
Yeah.
In terms of rates, I think before we get into regional rates, I think let's step back for a second and discuss, television rates as a whole. The very fact that television is indexed on cost per rating point puts us at an automatic disadvantage versus print versus digital, which are they use CPM or CPT as a measure. And if you go by reach, I think television today is by far the most cost efficient media of running a campaign across the country. And the day we move to sort of a CPM or a CPT measure, you will see a huge correction in TV rates. Now we have three major constituents. They are the clients, they are the agencies, they are, of course, the broadcasters, right? The broadcasters and the agencies are very much in favor of moving to a common currency across. But the clients, the advertisers who at the end of the day write the check, obviously don't want to do that because, somewhere it'll give in a big way, right? And the rates will go up. So to start off with, television is under indexed across the board. Yeah. And within that, yes, you're absolutely right. If you look at regional television, that is even more under indexed when you even compare it to Hindi. Now, why? I think the first step in there is to sort of correct that imbalance by at least equating the two. Today, the gap could be as much as, half to sort of, even more than that, yeah, depending on the market you choose to compare. So yes, both have tremendous headroom to grow, but it will require a concerted effort to move to a common currency, just the way we are trying to move to a common measurement system so that we sort of, credit viewership across screens. Similarly, we should be crediting reach across media, yeah, in using this.
Ramesh, we did a study a few years back, a very interesting study, where we kind of looked at GDP growth in the top 50 cities of India. And we found that the lowest growth was in metros.
Yeah.
And actually the much faster GDP and per capita income growth was having in non-metros. But still, as you said, it's under indexed for regional, right? Is it a perception issue of old that an English reader is more valuable than a Hindi reader and so on and so forth that's causing this? Or is this something else?
No, I think a lot of it is legacy. I mean, regional has really come into its own in the last decade or so. And earlier, the way planning was done is you started off with a Hindi plan and then you overlaid a regional plan on top of it, so as to fill in the gaps. And markets like the South always had their own independent planning going on. But for a lot of markets which had overlap, like Maharashtra, Bengal, Punjab, all the northern markets, which have really sort of, rebounded and come back very strongly, that is the practice being followed. So in many cases, regional for the longest time was considered to be a poor country cousin or, always had to come second whenever it came to a share of anything. But that has gradually become corrected because it's much more segmented, it's much more targeted, and it's much more cost efficient. So yes, and going back to your observation about small towns, you're spot on. I mean, the other day I was talking to sort of Falguni from Nykaa, and she said the bulk of the growth is not coming from the metros. It is amazing to see how many stores they've been opening in smaller towns and how they've been swamped with orders from there, and I think a lot of e-commerce players will make the same observation. The growth is coming from what we would term as the hinterland. It's outside your metros, it's outside your class 1, class A cities, because there is a tremendous population which is very aware, thanks to sort of, being connected these days, and they do have the purchasing power. And now during the pandemic, we have seen an explosion of delivery services. They deliver on time, they deliver accurately, and your stuff reaches there in a very cost-effective manner. So the last barrier, which was reach, has actually come down. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, markets are exploding. Regional markets are at the forefront, and they are finally sort of coming into their own, getting the credit they always deserve.
And that's good to hear, because I think, I'm going to segue from here into my next question, which is, yes, we've spoken TV, which is the big, largest, 800 plus million reach animal that we always love. But there is this whole massive movement in digital as well in the regional space, right?
Yes.
Which understandably earlier on was a very metro-centric phenomenon. But I think now we have so many regional OTT platforms, like the individuals like AHA or Hoi Choi, as well as platforms like YouTube, Voot, and Amazon, and all, which all have this massive amount of regional content. What I'm trying to understand is that, the strategy that these platforms are using to actually get to a regional consumer with regional content versus what a strategy like a large national platform like a Netflix or Prime or Hotstar would use. I think they're pretty different, right? Because they're different markets, they are supposedly with different paying capacities. Is that true? Does a regional S-word need a different strategy from a national player? Will it survive?
It's a very difficult question to answer because digital is in the very sort of infant stages right now. They made tremendous strides during the COVID pandemic, primarily because a lot of original programming was not happening, and sort of coupled with attractive pricing, bundling of sort of availability with your regular sort of telephone tariffs. They've also seen a massive increase in viewership, right? So it's very hard to say at this point how regional sort of strategies for digital differ widely from national. To me, as of now, there is no clear breakout. But what we are seeing is, regardless of this, all platforms are focusing heavily on regional, whether it's through commissioning more original content or whether it's through acquisition of latest movie titles, dubbed rights, as well as sort of libraries. So a lot of the initial sort of excitement you saw on regional came from the movies. They came from new hits, they came from blockbusters, and they came from libraries which were packaged very attractively. And in many ways, they were reintroduced back to the public, right? And thanks to subtitling, thanks to dubbing, they are now reaching an audience which they never reached earlier.
Yeah.
So Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, they are all fabulous stories just waiting to be discovered. And in a country that is lapping up sort of, Korean and Spanish sort of, stories and content, there is no reason why content from within would not, it was just waiting to happen. Yeah. And the moment sort of the platforms made it possible, it started happening. So what you are seeing now is definitely, more and more people watching regional. That was already happening on digital in the form of offshoot content, either around movies, around songs, or around television. All right. So, but it's very early to say whether regional strategies for digital are going to be significantly different from national. As of now, I don't see any clear paths of differentiation. Down the road, I would expect to see a lot more original programming coming, a lot more experimental programming coming, because that is literally how the more evolved cinema market is.
Good, fair point. I completely agree with that. So I'm going to put you in a corner now and talk pricing. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So can a regional OTT be priced higher than Hindi OTT? And I'm going to take a page from print on this. When I see the cover price of newspapers in Hindi markets versus I see the cover price of newspapers in regional markets, I see the regional cover prices are far higher.
Yes.
Right? They're willing to pay 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 rupees a day for a regional newspaper. But Hindi struggles at 2, 3, and 4 rupees on cover prices. Can we expect to see something like this in regional S-word as well, as people love their regional content?
No, absolutely. I don't see why not. But, pricing is just one part of the puzzle. You also have to figure out what you're offering within that price. So it cannot be a one-shot effort where you have sort of, it's more than price, it is value, right? India has always been a very value conscious, a very value creative kind of market. And as long as you can ensure people, there will be a steady supply of original content in a language they love, in a sort of milieu that they identify with, anybody would be willing to pay a premium for it. And this is more so, and we've already seen it, especially with the international diaspora, right? So whether it was television channels or digital access, they were already paying multiples of what the Indian price is. Now, you may say it's a function of the sort of, incomes as well. Yes, that could partly be true. But the fact is there was a genuine appreciation for the content. So I genuinely believe that as long as you're offering premium content, as long as you're sort of, offering something new and a reason to get people back, it's about attraction. It's also about retention. It's also about the lifetime value, and that's where it really scores in a big way.
Yeah. So relevant content and a steady stream of it are critical. Pricing will follow. That's what I'm hearing you. Great.
Absolutely.
Regional short video, another area which is, seeing some phenomenal successes, right? Both in terms of the, vertical scrolling, TikTok type products, now, of course, more on Takatak and Reels and stuff. I find it fascinating. We were talking with the guys at Josh and Insta the other day. and they're like, regional is as big or bigger than Hindi now in some of the markets, right? And that I find fascinating to say that a short video format has gone regional so fast, right? What's your take on it? Do you see a specific regional short video phenomenon that's going to stay, or is this just a fad?
No, I think it is here to stay. User-generated content is big, and it's the kind of thing everyone identifies with. And if you look at advertising and to go back a few years, you initially had a national ad. Then you started having sort of, maybe regional language dubbed versions of the national ad. Then a lot of advertisers smartly started moving away into sort of regional specific advertising for the same brand. Yeah. But it was distinct from the Hindi campaign, so market by market, you started getting campaigns, right? And now you're at a stage where, instead of just talking or touting about a brand attributes or a brand talking about itself, you're actually having meaningful conversations. You're engaging people. So short video, I think, is a great way of doing it. It's a great way for brands to rise above themselves and to actually sort of get into conversations, get into community, get into contemporary issues and be larger than life. And short videos could be there for entertainment. They could be there for advertising. They exist in every possible form. Every day, both you and I get a ton of things forwarded to us. They may not always be in English and Hindi, and some of them are very, very entertaining, So yes, there has been an explosion. There's been an absolute explosion of, content which is being willfully created and content which is also being sort of, casually created. But the sheer plethora of content available is incredible. And I don't see it being a fad at all. It's here to stay, and it'll only continue to grow over time.
Yeah, I think you're bang on, because from whatever my research shows, 1 in 3 influencers are now in regional languages already. So clearly there's like a huge growth. Okay, last question. And this is really your future crystal balls gazing for the future, Ravish. If you were to look at the top trend that you expect to see in the next 2 to 3 years in the regional space, what would that be?
I see a lot more investment happening in the regional space. Yeah. Now, I've been in the space for over a decade now. And I've literally seen the quality of production sort of, go from where it was to where it is today. Now you put 2 screens next to each other, you cannot tell what is regional, you cannot tell what is Hindi, you cannot tell what is English. The production values are phenomenal. They are all at par. So, but what is still lacking is the ability to dream big and to take big sort of, big sort of investments. You started seeing it in movies, and oh boy, are you seeing it in movies, with Pushpas and KGFs and things going. I mean, they are movies made with regional stars who are now going national in a big way, right? So that star, Yash, is no longer just a Kannada phenomenon. Yeah, he is now a national phenomenon. And I expect to see a lot more of that. As a network, we are the one who pioneered sort of Big Boss in regional, and look where it is today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's there in practically every language. KBC is there in every language. Fear factor is something we are looking at and trying to figure out how we can get the cost structures to work for us. So you will see sort of content that is, there's going to be no dividing line between content. It's going
regional to national is the next
Absolutely.
big.
Correct.
What about regional to international? Do you see that happening?
It's already happened in TV, So your diaspora in the Middle East, in Singapore, they've all been huge watchers of Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. And the moment you go to the US, you go to the UK, tremendous demand for Punjabi, Hindi. It's across the board. So I see no reason why it isn't happening even as we speak. So I think the biggest problem with us is going to be, how do you continue to come up with these ideas on a continuous basis? Yeah. And that's where the whole next generation of writers and creators is coming into their own. And so we are moving beyond the traditional production houses, beyond the traditional sort of, people who had a bit of a stranglehold on creation, because now creation is anybody's business. Yeah. And you've seen some great stuff coming from, Viral Fever. You've seen examples like Kota Factory, not made with a huge budget, total unknown cast, but beautifully relatable sort of, stories. And that's what I see happening. I see the scale of investment going up. I see a lot more sort of newer experimental content coming up. I see a lot of relatable content coming up, which is what regional has always been about. It's been rooted, it's been real, it's been very relatable. Yeah. So you will see a lot more of that. And there's no reason why it cannot go international. All it needs is subtitling, dubbing, and the ability to bundle it and make it available.
So I think on that positive note, Ravish, thank you for your time today. I learned a lot as always when I speak to you. So I appreciate the insights from your end. looks like the regional nomics will work and the future of regional content is bright. It can scale. It'll have more stories, more ideas, more formats, more investment. And on that note, thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ashish and Ravish. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Now, audience, don't go anywhere. Our next session is coming right up.
Hope you enjoyed the earlier session. Bengali cinema has always been a top contender amongst regional cinema for its art and experimental appreciation. We are happy to present two of the most acclaimed and popular names in Bengali cinema, Pauli Dam and Arindam Seal. Leading the session is none other than a very, very prominent name in the radio industry and who is currently the COO and director at Red FM and Magic FM. Allow me to welcome Nisha Narayanan with guests Pauli and Arindam. Thank you so much, Nisha, for doing this.
Thank you so much, Rajika. It's a pleasure being here. And we, of course, today talking about discovering new narratives. I've got Arindam Sil and Pauli Dam as the panelists, and I'm extremely happy to lead the panel. But just before that, when we're talking about discovering new narratives, this whole regional ecosystem is going through a significant change. And we're witnessing this whole rise of regional content in the country, be it through cinema, be it through music, be it through radio or audio, and I can say that for us, experimental festivals, food festivals, regional food festivals, all of this is culminating into this whole upsurge of regional content in multiple ways. And there is this huge wave of cultural celebration. So Arindam and Pauli, I'm extremely happy to kind of have this conversation with you. Before I do anything, let me quickly do a formal introduction and let me just speak about both of you. So on Arindam, having no lineage of the entertainment media, Arindam was all set to pursue his doctoral program at an American university after graduating from St. Xavier's College and completing his MBA from IISWBM. But quite timely, he decided to nurture himself as an actor, which he quite successfully did. And during his period of 34 years of his chosen profession, Arindam has passionately pursued his career as an actor, producer, executive producer, line producer, and finally, one of the most accepted, followed, and loved director of the Bengali film industry. And on Pauli, the beautiful Pauli needs no introduction, one of the most successful Bengali cinema Indian actress who has forayed into Bollywood cinema and is also a popular face on OTT platforms. And she received international recognition for her role in the Bengali film Chhatrak. The film was screened at the Cannes Film Festival and also at film festivals in Toronto and the UK. And she has a postgraduate degree in chemistry and is a power yoga enthusiast. Wow. So welcome to the panel, Arindam and Pauli. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Thank you so much, Nisha. Hi, Pauli, Rajika, hi. Thank you so much for having us here, and we look forward to a hearty discussion.
Yes. So while we just spoke about this whole cultural celebration, Arindam, let me start with you. You know, this whole resurgence of regional content that I'm talking about into the national landscape, right? Where do you think we're headed right now?
We're headed in a very positive way, definitely, but there are issues that needs to be discussed and issues that need to be discussed with a lot of care and trepidation. But before we go into where we are headed, can I take a few seconds off to discuss where we came from? I mean, yes. The whole Bengali film industry, content was driven by cinema mostly, and the whole Bengali film industry at one point of time was ruling the country. And there were people from this part of the country who had gone over to Mumbai, whether it's Bimal Rai, whether it's Raj Kapoor, whether you talk about n number of names, one after the other, Rahul Dev Burman, Kishore Kumar, one after the other, it's been just one flow that went on happening. And then, of course, the Ray and Ritik Ghatak and everybody. There was a time when such kind of cinema was happening all across the country. And there was a time when Bangla cinema was being made into Hindi films. So we lost our foothold, I would rather say, and wouldn't like to discuss much on that, because why and how has a lot been discussed earlier. But what I see right now is another transcending of this is a situation where I do not, and I would not like to call myself a regional filmmaker. I'm a national filmmaker. I make national cinema, like all my counterparts in Maharashtra, Punjab, any language that is being made, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, everywhere. We are all making national films as much as Hindi films. They are also national indeed. Just that we have differences in budget, we have differences, we have certain constraints, and these are the things that needs to be very carefully looked into. Presently, especially, I would say the situation, COVID situation, had given the digital platform a speed up. It was only yesterday I was going through this new data about a very popular digital platform losing 2 lakh subscribers already. So I kept on saying one very important thing, Nisha, and I have been crying my lungs and heart out about it, because I am a man from cinema and I believe in cinema, and my company is called Nothing Beyond Cinema. So the thing is that cinema will exist. Till the day humanity exists, cinema will exist. And there is no second thing about it. When there was this huge hue and cry about because of the digital content, cinema is taking a downslide. No, it was not happening. What we failed to realize we failed to see the positive aspect that a new avenue of content creation was made. And this avenue of content creation is going to give rise to all so-called regional content developers to make a headway. And also, cinema is going to get more focused. Yeah.
Absolutely. But then I have a question here. When we're talking about these OTT platforms, which is hosting a lot of cinema in regional languages, which is also getting acceptance in the national landscape. As a director, when you're directing, do you direct keeping the audiences differently for OTT and differently for theatrical releases? In the last 2 years, was there a change in perspective that if you are making a film for an OTT platform, or which is going to be released on the OTT platform, it will be much different from how it is going to be in the theaters?
Of course. I mean, that's so very important, Nisha. And this over the last 2 years, this is what we've been taught. And you see whether you see the various kind of films that have been happening, whether a Scorsese or Tom Hanks film which came out in Apple TV. You see the way large scale content films have been developed for your laptop, for your television screen, for your mobile. It's so very important. So that is why
I'm so sorry. Could you give some insights on it? I'm saying that if when you treat it differently, how differently do you treat it? And if some more insights would be brilliant to hear.
There are so many things to look into. One very important aspect is when you are holding your mobile and you're watching a content, that concentration span is very less. There are so many things that's happening all across. So you have to keep the audience glued as much as possible. In the recent survey that has come up, we are being told that the concentration span is just about 3 seconds of realizing what you're seeing on the screen. It's just 3 seconds. So we are being told that within 3 seconds, if you're creating a TVC, then you do something, you bang on, you just hit on to what you want to say. Now that is one aspect. Another aspect is the framing, the whole way of presenting your cinema or your digital content. It has to be different. You have to see, for instance, I very recently made a film on the great Mahashweta Devi, and it's called Mahananda. It's running here right now, and I had focused it for cinema, and the whole cinematography of the film is a bit dark. It's a bit dark, more like stuffs like Fraser makes, I would say, more like Batman or Dune, that kind of dark photography cinema. Now I know that if I give it as a content in digital media, it won't work because the resolution would be real. So there are many technical aspects, even the acting, even the way I think Pauli would be, apt and the right person to say so, because she's doing great work in national digital content creation as an actor. So now the thing is, when we are working for cinema and this whole aspect of working for digital content, technically, psychologically, choreograph, presentation, all are different. You cannot make a Bahubali for digital content. Let's not do that. So because of this division of content creation, let us celebrate that we have got more avenue, and therefore we have, say, something like which I wouldn't be able to make in a film. It would perhaps have ran into 6 hours of content. I can treat that in digital content. But my cinema has to be cinema. It has to be big screen. The magic of big screen have to be there.
And I'm hoping that there'll be more and more audiences coming into cinema, especially after 2 years of lockdown.
They are right now.
Access them. So, Pauli, let me ask you, in continuation to what we just spoke, while OTT platforms have been a game changer, right, and for a filmmaker as well as for audiences, as an actress, how has the OTT platform affected you, and how do you see it going forward?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
As Arindamda had mentioned a lot about how he sees, about how he actually perceives about. So this is for me a traditional filmmaking process, and then it is releasing on a 70 screen. It's a community viewing, okay, and OTT I would call a very personal viewing. So that's the main difference which I found even when I started watching films and series on OTT for the last 6-7 years. And I really got hooked into it because of the contents, because you can experiment a lot, and especially with actors, especially with female actors. There are a lot of female-oriented contents which we don't see usually in traditional cinema, because there are a lot of risk associated with it. Like quote unquote, like usually when it comes with the traditional filmmaking, like he mentioned Bahubali, it's of course it's a huge saga, right? It's a huge landscape. So which it's a huge canvas. So that what I feel is difference in an OTT viewing and theater viewing. So for me as an audience, if I'm going to an theater, I would love to watch something larger than life. of course, you can watch larger than life in your any of your devices, but that impact won't be that strong. Like the 3D effect, the 4D effects, then
No, so
of course about sound, music. But regarding OTT, I think like there are a lot of contents which you can really make your audience view, and you can make your audience go through that content in a very personalized manner, and they will feel that as if they are being led through the process, which even I feel while watching a film. So that is very interesting. And regarding OTT, I would say, but there is no clash actually. Means both can exist in harmony, because it is good for us. Like for us, I would say, as an actors, for technicians, for lot of fresh talents, it's actually a big opportunity, because initially they were stuck somewhere, not getting producers, not getting budget, maybe a limited budget. So those we have overcome actually, I guess, through OTT. And also the interesting point of OTT is that I did a film Bulbul for Netflix, and what happened during that, I initially for any language, I would call language cinema, whenever we release a language cinema, it's not a very huge release as a Hindi film. Let's accept facts. Not even as a South film. Yeah, South is a much bigger market that way. So for a Bengali film releasing in Kolkata or in Bengal, there are certain number of theaters. Then you go pan India release, then you go international release. So slowly you actually move into deeper or means a bigger number of audience, right? But for an OTT release, it can release at the same time in 190 countries across the globe.
Globally.
There's no language barrier. There is no barrier actually, even for the actors who come from different spheres of, means maybe one can be from Bombay, one sorry, from Mumbai, another actor can be from Kolkata, another actor can be from South, or maybe from Andamans. Like I did a Great Indian Murder with Igmanshu Dhulia for Hotstar. So during that also, it's an ensemble cast. And it's very interesting to watch, like actors from different space, and they come together and they make something so unusually beautiful. I think that has been possible through OTT. Yeah.
Yes, I think very well articulated there, Pavni. I'm also saying that, and if I just move away from OTT and come back to cinema, you in particular have been doing a lot of roles, versatile, right? Not just wait for the OTT to happen, but you've been doing a lot of versatile roles. And I must mention the Konkani film that you did, which won a national award as well for the best Konkani film. So were you consciously making decisions about your roles, or did they just fall into your lap? How has the decision making been?
I think both. Yeah, you need to, you need to fall things on your lap at times. At times, you need to make a conscious decision. What I wanted to do is, like, thankfully, I've got directors who have, they thought that I'll be able to do it, and they found that confidence in me. And I wanted to always do cinema which talks about women issues. I can only do it through my art. I'm not an activist. Like I just cannot move on the road and just talk about something randomly. I would rather want to do it through my cinema, whatever contents I choose. So the choosing of contents was something which I did cautiously. And I wanted to also, talk about things which women usually can't, also about the taboos of the society. It can be, of course, the even male, they also go through a lot of issues, we know that. So I just wanted to do cinema which talks reality, which can evoke some kind of thoughtfulness or meaningfulness into, in people's mind, and let them behave better way, and they would treat a woman in a much better way, with much more loving way. So that was the only thing in my head. And also I didn't want to stereotype myself. Like usually actors, it's very unfortunate, like they can't say no. At times they feel scared or feared about like what would happen next if they don't get work. So there's also a lot of insecurity which happens, and it is normal. Like we are human beings, we have a lot of emotions, and as an artist, it's not a secured field, first of all. So that also plays in an artist's mind. But I think that freedom we need, that freedom of space, the freedom of thinking, the freedom of choosing, that has to be there. And I felt whatever I've chosen, like be it Natukir Moto, I played a theater actress, Kia Chakraborty. Then Kalvala was my first break as a lead, which was directed by Gautam Ghosh. I played Madhavi Lata, who is considered to be epitome of love. So all these interesting things and characters which I have not done before, not done earlier, something new is coming my way. I like experimenting. Yeah.
No, so
It's
this
not
whole
the length of a
experimental
character
space.
also. I think it's not the length of a character. In fact, I did a film called Machir Jhol. I think I had 5 to 6 scenes, but it was so impactful. Like when audience watched it, I could see their reaction, and they just came upon me, like they just told me, like, that one scene on the terrace, that was so nice, that explained the entire film. Like in Bulbul, there was a scene where Vinodini is talking to Badi Bahu, and she's telling chup rehna. So she, being a victim, she has accepted that this misogynistic space of life, and that's what she wanted to tell her, to make her happy, to make her, like, to give her some peace, because this is what it should be. So those, I think,
I'm so glad. I'm so glad, Pauli, you're leading by example. And I'm saying it's really wonderful to see you in these versatile roles. I need to come back to what you just answered, and I will probably probe a little more on that. But let me come back to Arindam once more.
Sure.
So while we're talking about experimental roles and cinema, you have a knack of recreating very famous detective characters, be it Byomkesh Bakshi or Nitin Mashi, I hope I'm getting my pronunciation right, or Shabod. And I'm saying they're all extremely, extremely popular. So on one hand, where when we're talking about contemporary cinema, um, there is a constant need to discover. There are a few directors who are looking for new narratives, new characters, and creating completely new story play. And here you are, where you've taken older characters and you sort of glamorized them, recreated them, and brought them in the forefront. Your thoughts on this, Arindam?
Nisha, I've been extremely clear about my thought process and my focus about what I wanted to do. There was a point when in Bengali film industry, there used to be so-called commercial cinema, running behind the trees and bushes. I don't mean any wrong about such kind of cinema, but that's what meaningless films that used to happen. And another form, which used to be called art films. What we felt, a group of directors who are right now working pleasantly well in this scenario, is that
even actors, even we felt the same thing, and we actually fought together. It was important to fight together.
That's why we are together. That's why we are together, of course. It was a great fight that we did. Yeah, someday we'll tell this story. True, but we believed that a certain kind of realistic, entertaining cinema needs to be done. I myself, as a director, after working for so many years as an actor, having worked as a line producer and executive producer, when I have been a director for only about 8 years, and I've done about 17 films, and I have turned out blockbusters. Like each and every film of mine have been a blockbuster. But my only focus that has been was that to get the audience back into the theaters, and that was important. I must create a certain kind of content with which I can give my audience that, hey man, this is looking new. So when I was treating Byomkesh, in fact, I was the line producer for Dibakar's Detective Byomkesh Bakshi. So I have seen the kind of that whole plethora of production design Dibakar was doing, the kind of budget that was being meted out. And I felt, oh gosh, if only we could get such kind of budget for our cinema. The amount of money that is spent in one action sequence or a song sequence in a Hindi film or a Telugu film goes on to make up for the whole budget of a Bengali film. But we are not, we don't put ourselves down. We think that, at the same time, when at an Inox or a PVR, there are shows running from one screen to another. When an audience walks into screen number 1 and there's a Batman happening, another walks in, there's a KGR happening, and another screen, there's a Mahananda happening. Even if my budget is low, I have to create that kind of cinema that will look huge, that will look, and with that aspect only, I created Bomkesh larger than life. So my first Bomkesh was kind of placed at Banaras. So I created a kind of travelogue into my Bomkesh. When I got Shobor Dasgupta, it was written by one of the very famous writers in our Bengali, Shishendu Mukhopadhyay. He's a legend. He's a living legend. So this work wasn't very popular. But I had just worked with Ashim Mishra. I'm talking about the DP Ashim Mishra. I've worked with Sudeep Chatterjee, who've been my childhood friend, and I have worked with Ashim Mishra in Gunde. I was the line producer of the film. And I saw how Asim was opening up his camera on the streets and he was wanting to shoot full frame. So that inspired me. And I said, come on, I don't need money to do that. I can do that. And that's how I took my camera in the streets of Kolkata, right in the busiest of the streets. I set my camera down and I said, look, I'm going to shoot out here. And whether it was a guerrilla shoot, yes, we don't have, like Sudeep was saying that for Gangubai, there were like there were at least 800 electricians. We shoot with 150 team members, and there's 800 electricians. See the kind of difference. What I wanted to say, Nisha, is, and since time is short and I want to finish it up, is that we have been trying our extreme best to create such kind in our cinema, in our content creation. But this so-called regional effort needs to be noticed. I'm glad that actors like Pauli, and there are many more, they are being noticed. They are being taken away. I don't get my date for my film, and she says that, okay, I have I'm shooting for Tigmangshu. So that's fine. So I'm waiting for her to come back and we'll shoot together.
This was
I'm so happy.
so not true.
No. But I'm so very happy that this is happening, Pauli.
True.
The same thing needs to be happening for content creators also. The content creators need to be identified. Now, whatever is happening, not just in this country, but all across the globe, is that from where Korean cinema becomes so popular. From which space does Money Heist become so popular? A small country like Spain creating a small country like Iceland creating such content. As Pauli was saying, there is no bar across the globe about content creation. All that needs to be done is that if this 2 lakh less subscribers are to be made up for, then a certain kind of above average content needs to be made. And you cannot rely back on certain fixed names. You have to come up with, you have to look across the country. And I think this is where you guys are helping us out. Thank you so much.
No, I think the whole geographical boundaries are sort of narrowing down completely. And then that's sort of, the lines are thinning down dramatically. I say that from a radio perspective as well. I mean, we run different radio stations, and the need for regional content, vernacular content, if I may be allowed to say so, is really, really growing. I mean, songs like Pushpa, for instance, or otherwise we would, as a Hindi radio station, we would otherwise never play it. But suddenly the huge demand for a lot of Bengali songs, for a lot of South Indian songs is slowly picking up pace, and the demand is picking up. The only point which I would also like to make as a broadcaster is that multiple platforms need to come together with the same vision. It cannot be the cinema industry fighting on its own, radio fighting on its own, or television trying to fight on its own. We need to come together as a community and celebrate the whole cultural resurgence which has come in, and celebrate culture. India has, and why just say that, South has more budgets or East has less budgets, but the fact that we're making good cinema, we're making cinema which is the blockbuster, the grand ones, but we're also making great cinema for the OTT platform. I think that has to be a cumulative effort of the entire media and entertainment industry.
That's exactly what I
one
was
industry.
You're absolutely
about.
right, Nisha. Absolutely.
Very true.
Right?
And of course, I mean, the way you pointed out that whether it's a radio or whether it's cinema or whether it's digital content, you cannot segregate them. Now is the time to bring them all together and celebrate this upsurge that's happening. Media is the industry of this era. You have to acknowledge this. And with that, and just to acknowledge that, mere acknowledgement is not enough. It's that we have to combine ourselves together. That
to make, I think,
show. True. It will show in no time.
I think the most important thing is the content, is whether it's a good content or not, whether it's a quality or not the quantity. I think for quality, all of us needs to come together, which is so true.
I think over the years, there's so much of cookie cutter kind of programming and content that is being created. The last 2-3 years, it's seen a lot more experimentation that has happened, which is good for the audience and for content creators as well. And I can say that for music, I can say that for movies. I think we really see that happening. And I think that coexistence and coming together, crossing language barriers, which has now happened, like you said, Arindam, whether it's a Korean series or whether it is Money Heist or anything, I'm just saying it really doesn't matter. The relatability is there. It's strong, engaging content. And so that's where we are. I wish I could speak more. I don't think I have much time. But one quick last question, Pauli. I'm just saying that, you just touched upon different genres. Yes, I've got a note saying, please wrap up. So I don't think I will talk for long. But then I'm just saying a quick one where when you mentioned, having worked with Basu Chatterjee, Rituparna Ghosh, Gautam Ghosh, different genres of films. Do you approach it very differently from the glamorous roles to these kind of roles? How is it treated very differently as an actor? I mean, that would probably be my last question.
Sure. You're playing somebody else, not yourself. So if you're glamorous, you need to behave glamorously and like.
I'm saying the way it's approached. The way it is.
See, as an actor, the way I approach is if I know that this girl is bubbly. So I need to think like her, and if I know I'm playing a character.
The experience you gained from working with different kinds of directors who have been experimental, who have been doing commercial.
Approach of both. Yeah, every director have their own way of putting things, but I personally like all kind of cinema, all genres. It can be mainstream, it can be larger than life, it can be very realistic zone, it can be dark, or it can be a thriller, except for horror, the only thing I'm a little scared of watching till now. But except for horror, but every other genre of films actually attracts me and intrigues me. So it's a character sketch, it's the narrative, it's the flow of the entire space of the entire screenplay, and how how the characters have been woven, throughout the film. That's what I look for. And thankfully, with all my directors, they've been extremely kind and supportive, and given me some very good, interesting characters to play. And I feel like, as an actor, you get to live so many different lives. So why not live it to the fullest and just enjoy it, enjoy the process. So each and every cinema film is a journey for me, and I just love it's not the destination that we look for, but it's the journey, whether you're enjoying or not. With your team, with your captain, with the cast and crew, is that what I look for.
I just want one small thing is that there's an extremely positive thing about content creation in this part of the country, and that is we are a content-driven industry. We are not a hero-driven industry. We are not a star-driven industry. We in this part segment of the country are a content-driven industry, and that's how we want to, carry on.
I think my last line on my two penny on this is that the next time we sit together and have a discussion on a platform like the Promax, I hope we're not talking regional cinema. Arindam, as you started the conversation by saying it's about cinema. It doesn't matter which part of the country it's really coming from. It's about good cinema, celebrating great actors, directors, experimental cinema, wonderful roles, experimental roles, etc., and celebrate content and the whole surge of cultural.
I think it's a celebration of Indian culture, Indian cinema overall. That's
than regional cinema or
regional,
turning anything as regional cinema.
We need to come out of that mindset. That's very true. Yeah, only then I think we can be global.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for though it was a very short and quick conversation, but thank you for your insights. Lovely meeting you and talking to you. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, Nisha. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, over to you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. That was the most interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, up next, we are going to have another interesting conversation, also with a director and an actor, but this time from the Malayalam film industry. We'll be right back.
Good evening and welcome to the last session of the day. I hope you've enjoyed the sessions that we did for putting it together. The South film industry has always been at the focal point of cinema enthusiasts and critics, and the Malayalam film industry in particular for its filmmaking craft, representing a very, very intelligent form of cinema. We are so happy today to welcome Raj Nayak to lead this session. Raj needs no introduction. He's the most respected, most loved, and the nicest human being, and a leader in every way. Our first guest speaker is none other than Roshan Mathew, a very popular name and an accomplished Indian actor who works predominantly in Malayalam films. He has worldwide recognition in films like Muthun, Capella, and Amazon Prime's See You Soon. And our second guest this evening is Mahesh Narayanan. He's an Indian film director, editor, screenwriter, cinematographer, producer, and film instructor, all rolled into one. Please allow us to welcome Mr. Raj Nayak, founder and managing director of House of Cheer Networks Private Limited, along with his two guests, Roshan and Mahesh.
Thank you, Rajika. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction and also getting me with this august company of both Mahesh and Roshan. Thank you so much. And because I know we have limited time, I'm not going to waste too much time discussing other things. So I'll straight come to the point. And Mahesh, I'm going to start with you, right?
Okay.
Let's take off with your film Takeoff.
Okay.
What inspired you? What was the whole thing when you did that's your first movie, right? If I'm correct?
As a director, that's my
as a director, correct.
Yeah, so that happened in 2016, and so it was based on it was not exactly based on, but it was loosely based on the 2014 crisis of Indian nurses who got stuck in Iraq. How they got rescued was the core idea behind the film, and it's a fictional tale again. And so we did a lot of research in terms of how the captivity happened and what were their backgrounds, how were they traveling, and what actually happened. And so, and it was more on the realistic aspect, not on the tigers in the high basis. So being open. So that's how it happened. And like we didn't have that much kind of budget and all, since it's made in Malayalam. So we had to do a lot of prep in the beginning, just to be focused on how to build a set of Iraq, recreate Iraq, and we can't go to Iraq at that point. Because still it was 2016, so the ISIS war was not yet over, so they're still there. So we had to recreate a lot of areas which were familiar in news and all. So we relied upon lots of articles from Al Jazeera, friends from news agencies, Russian television. Lots of people helped us in recreating those things. So that's how it happened. Yeah, that's it.
It was a huge success, right? It was a
Yeah, commercially, it did well, and I think it did more business than in India abroad. Like in GCC, it did a huge business, and that time platforms were not that much popular because Netflix was not there. Amazon was not there first, but Netflix was coming up, but not taking regional films. It was It is streaming still on Hotstar. I think it's on Hotstar. Yeah.
Just quickly before I move on, and what percentage of business for a Malayalam movie comes from GCC countries and from India?
See, apparently, it was more like a outsourcing kind of a thing where we give outright for say, for example, not not inclusive of GCC alone, but hold together the world, overseas sales. That will be given to a particular provider that, or a distributor, that he or she will be distributing it with some of their partners and all. So that's what the regular business agenda will be. But now it turned upside down because of the huge price difference, and theatrically, if you take GCC alone, like I will tell you an example, like GCC collected for takeoff alone, GCC collected 10 times more than the money what it was acquired. That means it's huge money. But so those days, it was not monetized directly by the producer because, as I said earlier, it was given on a fixed rate. But nowadays, what Malayalam industry, and moreover most of the southern industry, what the fraternity is doing is right now is aligning a profit sharing basis, so that how much is gained from there, it's been shared between the producer and the distributor over here with the distributor there. So that's how the business functions. Right.
Roshan, you have a very interesting trajectory. Your career, you wanted to do engineering, and then you moved from Kerala to Chennai, did your graduation, then moved to Bombay School of Drama. And how did you decide to get into acting? What was your inspiration?
I never really wanted to do engineering, actually. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in Kerala especially, and I think it happens pretty much everywhere, people end up in an engineering college if they're not exactly sure about what specifically they want to do. So that's what happened with me. My grades were decent, so I was sent for like an engineering entrance coaching class. I attended a few of those classes. I appeared in a few engineering entrance exams, and then before I knew it, I landed up in an engineering college. But once there, I realized that I wasn't particularly enjoying what I was learning there. I wasn't particularly enjoying my life in that particular college either. So I wanted out, and luckily enough, I somehow found the courage to do that. So after 1 year of being in an engineering college, I dropped out. I then started reconsidering what else I could possibly do in college, and I was always sort of interested in, and I liked studying physics. So then I moved to Chennai, joined Madras Christian College to do a BSc in physics. And over there, again, the same thing sort of started repeating. I wasn't particularly excited about what I was learning. And I knew that, dropping out a second time wasn't an option at all. So then I had to start to sort of look around to see what else was there to make life a little more exciting. And Madras Christian College, if you're aware, is a very culturally active campus. There's a lot of stuff that happens that apart from what happens within the classroom. So, and you have especially resident students have access to almost all of it. So then one particular day, a professional theater group from Chennai landed up at MCC. The director of that group was an ex-MCC, and so they were auditioning for a play that they were going to do outside in the city, nothing to do with the college at all. And I'd done a couple of plays in school, short skits here and there, and I'd enjoyed that. I those were good memories. So I went for the audition. I got a small part in that play, then started going for rehearsals for that one, and then I absolutely loved that process of making that play. I had a very, very small part to play in it on stage, but I was around for the entire rehearsal process. I was around for everything that happened with production. And once that was done, I just wanted to keep doing more and more of it. And at that point, there was an active theater scene in Chennai. I wasn't fluent enough with Tamil to work in Tamil plays, which is where a lot of the really good work happens. But I got exposed to all of it. I did plays with whoever I could work with. I was spending more time at theater rehearsals than in college, and more time definitely doing theater than I was doing physics. And by the end of 2 or 3 years of doing that, I sort of realized that that was making me really happy. It was something that I wanted to keep getting better at. Every day at rehearsal, I would be thinking that, okay, I've got to do my scenes better than I did it the last time. With every play, once every play ended, or once one cycle of shows ended, I was already thinking about, okay, next time I'm up on stage with another play, I want to do even better than I did in this one. And then one day I realized that it had been a really long time since I was doing anything that I wanted to get better at doing. Those physics, engineering, none of that. When I was doing it, I didn't want to do better than I did the last time or the last day. So I figured, okay, if I take this up and continue with this, maybe I won't get bored.
So what was your first movie?
My first movie actually was a film in Malayalam called Pudhiya Niyamam with Mammootty and Nayantara in the lead, directed by Mr. A.K. Sajan. This happened while I was in Bombay. I had finished my course at the Drama School, Mumbai. I was freelancing. I was working in a bunch of productions in Bombay theatre, auditioning left, right, and center like every actor in Bombay does. And I happened to be in Kochi for a while for a family thing. And at that point, I figured, okay, now that I'm here and I have all this free time, might as well try and do some auditions here as well. But this whole audition culture didn't really exist at that point. This is mid 2015 in Malayalam. But I managed to get to meet a few people, and I sort of pitched myself to them, and I said, I've done a few plays, I've done this course. Could I please audition for your next film? And most people were like, oh, okay. We don't have a lot of people walking and asking for an audition. We usually have people walking and asking for a part in the next film. So that's interesting. And then a bunch of those fortunate meetings led to Pudhiya Niyamam happening. So that was my first film.
So Mahesh, you have post that in the pandemic, you came out with See You Soon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right in the midst of pandemic, when the whole world had come to a standstill, you were producing your own movie. And how did you manage that? And again, what was your inspiration?
That's basically out of frustration, probably, maybe because I had a film which was supposed to release on theaters. So we never had a date. So we understood that now it's all uncertain. We don't know how to move ahead. That time, those are tough times because we don't know what is the situation really, and how long this is going to hold, where the whole world will be like this. There were no kind of X number of versions to be described at that moment. So at that, everybody were almost confined into our houses, and then we start realizing that art has to be done in some way or other to get ourselves start functioning or just start working. So it was like me and Fahad, we normally have a regular basis chat where we used to call up and ask what is happening. And so now when things got standstill and now nothing else to do, so we shared something okay, why can't we work around something which is on a smaller idea work. There was this permit given by the state government in Kerala to shoot with a minimum crew in indoor. That was actually 30-member crew, I remember. But people were all that was actually given to television people because television people they don't have content, so they have to produce content. So for them it was very tough. So so we took that advantage, and then we started thinking about write something during that period, and then try working out with an idea which that idea was already there, but we tried to like manage that idea and fix it into a screen-based genre, so that because one more thing that was very popular that time is that this Zoom kind of meetings and Google Meetups, video conferencing and everything were very popular among people also. So by the time the film came out, most of the people were living with all these chat windows. So it was very helpful. So it was like, I still remember how Roshan, Darshana, and Fahad and everybody, we all assembled in one building, did our quarantine and everything there. That I was writing also that parallelly. Then we made a film. It was not like making a regular cinema. I think after that film, I don't think Roshan or any of the crew members in the film will ever experience such a kind of filmmaking, because that was like, whatever it's in our hands, let's make a film out of it. That's the only idea. Because and another thing is that see, there was a point when Malayalam cinema was not reaching into that digital platform section. Every other industry had that option of moving into digital straight away, because they had already pitched direct to digital films. Malayalam was not like that. We are all we were all dependent on theatrical films alone. So we had to push our boundaries and say that, okay, there is a language which exists in the down south, and we produce content for digital also. So that was the first time, I think, something which was produced
for digital.
For digital. Yeah.
And this went on Amazon.
Yeah, this went on Amazon.
Yeah, and Roshan, what was your experience?
It was lovely. It was a blessing that came out of nowhere, right? Like Mahesh mentioned, we were all sitting at home, beginning to get really frustrated with whatever routines we had come up with to survive the lockdown. And at that point, we just needed to work. We needed an outlet, and like Fahad, Mahesh and Darshana, these are all people that I really wanted to work with. With Darshana, I had already worked before, but with Mahesh and Fahad, I'd been waiting for an opportunity. I didn't expect it to come halfway through a lockdown. But yeah, the process was really exciting, because it wasn't exactly like shooting any other film. It wasn't like doing a play. It was somewhere in between of all of that, because for me, having come from like a theater background, we had a crew of less than 20 people, and everyone was doing everything. That's very similar to how a theater production sort of happens. And there was a lot of research and development happening without us even realizing it. At times we had to find ways to solve the problems that we discovered that we were having while we were shooting the film. And because we'd never attempted anything like this before, we could only realize what the problems were once we started shooting it. So that for me was really exciting, sort of sitting together with all of these guys and figuring everything out on the go.
On Zoom.
Well, we were physically in the same building, but yeah, the whole film happens on virtual.
Mahesh, was this, sorry for because of time constraints, I'm just interjecting in.
Yeah.
so quickly, my question is, Mahesh, this was your first digital film?
Direct to digital,
with the platform.
Digital, yeah,
with the platform. So how was what was your experience with Amazon?
See, Amazon was, because straight away they had the confidence to acquire the film, because like at that point we had no other options. So at one stage we even felt that, okay, if this is not working as a direct to digital film in terms of a feature film, we would have probably released it in a free platform like a Vimeo or a YouTube kind of a thing, where monetization is different. Like that is a different part. But we had a notion that talent should never be wasted. See, talents are all working, and so talent should be they should be seen somewhere. But Amazon was very keen at that point. Amazon was very keen, and they gave, especially the key people in Amazon. Vijay was there. Vijay was very much interested in showcasing this film, because they had the confidence to project it, mount it into their platform, and then they know that this will have a pan-Indian appeal. So that we didn't think about like that in that manner, but they had that confidence. Yeah.
Wonderful. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask you two last questions, and this is for both of you. where do you see yourself focusing more? OTT or cinema? When I say cinema, I mean I'm saying theater.
So cinema will practically coexist in both these areas. It is cinema is not going to I'm pretty sure that cinema is going to come in the metaverse. So I'm practically planning about how to make cinema engaging in a metaverse environment. So what is the research what I have to do? So I'm trying to learn that now. So cinema, yeah. So storytelling will always be there. So, but the thing is that certain stories will work directly in digital.
Roshan, you're thinking of how to act in the metaverse?
Well, now that Mahesh mentioned it, yeah, maybe. But otherwise, the answer for me is simple, right? I don't have to do anything differently. I'm yet to find a difference between what an actor has to do differently for an OTT film or for theatrical release. I'm working my first series right now, and I'd always thought that maybe if I ever do a series, I might find that something's different about how you take your character through the journey. But it really doesn't feel any different. I feel like our job is the same. Is to all of the basic elements are always the same, and maybe it's also because the series I'm working on is something that happens in a short span of time. I don't know, for me it's the same. I just want to do exciting work. It doesn't matter which medium it comes out on.
Amazing. And See You Soon has done so well, and it's been remarkably and very well applauded by everybody. So I'm sure your fan base also would have increased by now. So last question to both of you. What would you tell your fans? If you have to leave a message for them today, what would that be?
I don't know personally. I don't have any fans.
You'll be surprised. Don't be so modest, Mahesh. You'll be very surprised. It is a perception. It is a perception that only actors have fans. That's not true.
No.
Directors have fans.
I'm telling, we make films from our hearts. From our hearts. How we don't know how to evaluate our own films, because after a point we get dejected to that film, because if you are asking me to watch our own films again and again, it's not possible, because we feel all the mistakes in that. So it's tough. So whatever content we are trying to make next, we're trying to experiment it with slightly, push slightly ahead. So I'm always thankful to this new set of audience who are always helping us with their patience level, to actually be victims of our experiments. So in that manner, I'm very much helpful to them. Yeah, helpful to them. Yeah.
So Roshan, what is your message to your fans? Don't tell me you don't have fans.
No, I mean, if there are people who've been watching my films and liking it, my request to them has always been the same as which is to give the next film also a shot. That's what matters the most, right? In Malayalam especially, we have an industry that's not driven by anything except the content itself, or the story itself. So that's what's given people like me, actors like me, opportunities to be part of interesting projects. So I just hope that keeps continuing, that they're up for an experiment, whether we throw a See You Soon at them or throw a Pulimurugan at them. Somehow the audience here seems to be very receptive to everything of every kind in cinema. And that's the biggest blessing there is. So I hope that keeps continuing, that they watch the films that we make. If they like it, great. If they don't, then hopefully they'll watch the next one.
But the fact also remains that Malayalam as a language has produced some of the best cinema in this country. The budgets may be small, but the quality of storytelling, you've got some of the best technicians down south. And I think, your contribution to the overall Indian cinema is understated. So I think, and that's one market, I think, where you've been able to experiment for others to follow. So fantastic. And I wish you both very best. And hopefully one day when things are fine, and if I come to Cochin, I will get some nice Mallu food. And you close me to that. Yeah?
Certainly.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Maybe that day I'll get to meet Mahesh also in person. Right now, all of our meetings are happening in virtual events.
Okay, all the very best. And Andy, over to you.
Thank you, guys. That was most entertaining. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Thank you. All right, audience, and that's a wrap for the Promax India Regional Virtual 2022. The award show is up next at 6 p.m. Before we take a short break, we'd like to say a big thank you to all our sponsors and partners. We couldn't have done any of this today without them. Thank you.